Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for a meeting of the Tulare County Board of Supervisors. We will begin today's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be followed by a moment of silence. We will be led today by Supervisor Valero.
Please join me in saluting our nation's flag. Ready? Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Right, item number 1 on our agenda today is Board of Supervisors matters, and I will start with Supervisor Shucklian.
Thank you. Chief Norman is here. I don't see him, but it's hard to tell. As we all know, we had our ribbon cutting last week for Fire Station 1, and it was well attended despite restriction and whatnot. And it's a great station, very well placed. And as a matter of fact, in the midst of the celebration, they had an actual real call. So it just shows how needed that is there. I appeared via telephone last Thursday on the Ray Appleton show to discuss. There's Chief Norman. I just gave you a shout out, Chief. You missed it because I know you don't get many. So to discuss our new business grant program. So just trying to get that information out to as many folks as possible. We had our San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority meeting last Friday in Fresno. I called in. I'll maybe let probably Supervisor Crocker was probably going to speak about that, so I'll let you speak more if you want. Tulare County Economic Development Corporation Administration meeting yesterday. As many of you know, there's been a lot of different things flying out there as far as membership. We've discussed it here. We are maintaining our membership, and last night the Visalia City Council also voted to maintain their membership in the Tulare County Economic Development Corporation. So looking forward to good things there. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much. Supervisor Valero.
Well, good morning, Tulare County. These past few weeks, as many have experienced, have been a challenging time for me. As we continue to hear the news about our increase in rates and surge in our hospitals, I am reminded about the impact this has on people closely affected. The number of people who have contracted the virus, who I know directly, has been increasing, some with success, while others have either passed on or deeply damaged by this pandemic. We need to continuously remind people about the importance of social distancing, the need to wear a mask, and to support each other in this season of hardship, challenge, and change. I too want to thank the fire chief for an awesome Station 1 grand opening. It was great to see what a modern station looks like in present day, in addition to incorporating community with the addition of a room specific to workshops, training, education, and community investment. Lots of great women and men who tirelessly work on behalf of Tulare County to better the lives of all. We appreciate you and hope that this new station continues to grow and strengthen the department. And thank you to our chair for representing the board at the podium last week. Thank you to our board chair for representing the board at last week's Small Business Grant Program unveiling and press conference. This board cares deeply about the progress and prosperity of our small businesses, along with helping residents and community organizations keep afloat and thrive during this pandemic. Great to see an awesome level of interest for this program. which illustrates the need for resources and support throughout. It is imperative that we continue to help them realize their American dream, especially at a time when optimism seems like it's been deferred as well. I attended the Dinuba Government Affairs Committee last week, where we had a robust discussion on the Consolidated Transportation Project. Sadly, the vote to join the JPA stalled at 2-2, with Councilmember Morales absent. So I believe this will be brought back for discussion with a vote very soon, and hope that they too will join the JPA. We also received updates from Senator Hurtado's office, as well as Assembly Member Mathis's office and Mayor Tusu with the City of Dinuba. I also participated in yesterday's NACO business meeting online, and it was great to see what NACO generally and counties specifically are doing during this unprecedented time. The crux of the meeting was selecting NACO leadership for the upcoming year. And the notices went out yesterday regarding cancellation of boil water notice for the residents of Seville. I know the county has been working hard on this, and I am thankful that residents understand our work and our heart into this project. I know I mentioned this last week, but again, we will have a safe drinking water awareness campaign early next month to let residents of Seville know that the water is safe to drink. And then last Friday, I had the opportunity to participate in the Ivanhoe food and mass distribution with the Sheriff's Office. So thank you to the Sheriff Boudreau and his PAL team for selecting Ivanhoe as a site to provide much needed resources for this community. And I know that he will be out there again this week in the community of Goshen on Friday. So again, thank you for that impact. District 4 students in K through 16, so K, elementary, middle school, high school, and college, are also welcome to participate in Fun Under the Sun, a series of weekly competitions to engage our communities across northern Tulare County. And these activities will be entertaining, creative, and awesome, and help students stay motivated and encouraged during this pandemic. And then there are two things that are very important to me, especially during this time, and as we've noticed in this pandemic, is one is broadband access. And so broadband access is very important, and especially in rural Central California. And I believe that we deserve better. And so I am passionate about this issue now more than ever, and now realizing the effects this digital divide has on our communities. Hence why bills such as SB 1130, sponsored by Gonzalez, and AB 570, sponsored by Aguiar Curry, are very important to this progress. For example, AB 570 would on an annual basis require the State Department of Education, in consultation with county offices of education, to inventory the needs of local educational agencies for computing devices and internet bandwidth, with priority given to schools serving pupils in low-income neighborhoods. And the bill would require the State Department of Education to post a report on the inventory on its internet website. And then also, with regards to SB 1130, would require the Commission to develop, implement, and administer the California Advanced Services Fund program to encourage deployment of 21st century ready communications. And so this would provide high capacity, future-proof infrastructure based on current engineering and scientific information that would allow for providing such services to households that are underserved, as well as unserved high poverty areas. And the bill would require the Commission to prioritize projects in underserved areas and underserved high poverty areas as well. So this is something that, again, I have noticed, especially in the immediate, with regards to our need for more infrastructure, and especially in our rural communities. So that is all I have, Chair, and thank you so much.
All right, Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll cover a few things from last week and then some upcoming things. Last Wednesday, we had a RCRC Executive Committee meeting, and as Supervisor Valero mentioned, there's several bills discussing rural broadband. We discussed those and possible options to really get behind. We're behind both of them, but to really have a call to action for our full board to ask legislators to get behind those. It's still, staff felt like it was still kind of a moving target to figure out which one would have the most likelihood. SB 1180 was one of them, and there was I forget the number in the assembly, but there was an assembly authored bill that was by Assemblywoman Aguiar Curry, who were pushing those two vehicles. The main purpose for RCRC getting behind some of these vehicles is that currently counties aren't allowed to get into the broadband business, and there is a model that RCRC is looking at, and Golden State Finance Authority, that Utah has established, and it's a consortium of local counties that are profitable. They're building out rural broadband and deploying it. And so the idea would be if we had authorization to do that in California, then we could contract, set up a similar type model using existing, probably GSFA structure already, and then contract out with this group in Utah that already does it to try and deploy more broadband out to rural California. So it's a very interesting, very promising idea that's still, I wouldn't say it's in the infancy, but it's still a toddler as far as figuring that out. Also, Greg Norton, our RCRC's president, announced he's retiring at the end of the year. So there was quite a bit of discussion as far as what that looks like as far as recruitment, and that will be happening this fall. Last Thursday, I participated in CSAC's Government Finance Committee, primarily because they were taking positions and recommendations to the CSAC Executive Committee on Proposition 15 and 19, both of which are going to be on the November ballot. Prop 15 is the split roll initiative that would remove significant portions of Prop 13 and increase taxes for many of our businesses and for our farmers. There were quite a few Bay Area County Supervisors that were very much in favor of that, but we had enough members to take a no position on that. And so I think that's the recommendation going to the CSAC Executive Board, that there will be no position on that. Proposition 19 was something that I didn't, and I know our board we've already stated that we were against a split roll initiative when we talked about our policy platform earlier in the year. Prop 19 is something that we discussed, and it's not really as cut and dry, but we did take we recommended to oppose Prop 19, and from my standpoint, the biggest issue with Prop 19 is it allows individuals to transfer their property base taxes 3 times, but the negative part is it eliminates the tax-free status of inheritance of property from children and grandchildren. So it would remove that. So if you pass on and your property goes on, then whoever inherits that, if it's your kids or your grandkids, they will get taxed on that. We did take an opposed position on that, and that recommendation will go before the executive committee later on. As Supervisor Shucklian said, SJVIA we had on last Friday. I think the main thing is that rates look fairly favorable, but the big question mark is that we're still reviewing the impacts of COVID-19, and that could move the needle, possibly depending on how it's calculated, either more positive or stable. I don't think anything indicated that there was going to be any major spikes in rates. In fact, early indications show a little bit of a lowering. But the caution is that we don't want a big spike in rates next year, recognizing that people have just delayed a lot of procedures and a lot of medical care, and it doesn't necessarily mean that people are healthier. It just means that we're in a unique situation. Also noted on the NACO annual business meeting that happened yesterday, as Supervisor Valero talked about, I wanted to highlight a few things, and I apologize, I didn't write all the names down that I saw, but people that had participated in the NACO leadership training, and I think that that Jason, that you had a cohort a couple of years ago, they were honored, and their names were shown across the screen. So the names that I saw, and again, I apologize because I know there were more than this, but Christy Leach, Francina Martinez, and Julieta Martinez all participated in that. And again, I know there were at least probably 10 others that participated in that. And Colin Powell, I know he leads that. He led that effort. I think people got a signed book from him after completing that program, and he spoke at several of the legislative conferences for NACO. So that was something that I think was fairly worthwhile and fairly cost-effective to do and you don't have to travel for that. It was all virtual. Also to note, Craig Peterson, Kings County Supervisor, he was appointed as chair of the Ag Committee for NACO. And so California really has quite a bit of a very strong presence. There's several others that are committee chairs, James Gore from Sonoma County, Phil Cerna from Sacramento County, and lots of vice chairs. This week, today, depending on the meeting, PG&E is having a community wildlife safety session to discuss some of their plans. Thursday, the San Joaquin Valley Water Blueprint is having a meeting. Friday, the San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority is having a meeting. Monday, the East Cahuilla Groundwater Sustainability Agency is having a meeting. And Tuesday, the Yosemite Sequoia Resource Conservation Development Council has put together a meeting to discuss Tulare County specific projects for forest management. And so there's going to be a lot of partners in there. I'm really kind of excited. I've been talking with various people about roles and responsibilities and just basically how we can help efforts grow. I think we just noticed within the last week or two that a local group is doing some vegetation work on South Fork of the Cahuilla, and we're doing that, but there's a little bit of a gap. And so with a little more coordination, I think that we can make sure that we avoid having gaps of a few miles or so, and we can coordinate those efforts so that if a crew's already up there, let's finish that up and try and get that all taken care of so we have a nice fuel break. With that, that will conclude my comments.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Townsend down there at the end.
Dennis. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Well, as everyone has mentioned last week, we did go over and see the ribbon cutting at Fire Station 1, and that was really good. We were all really proud to be there. Thank you, Chief Norman, for having us. Nobody mentioned the cookies, but they were really good too. So, but hey, we're really thankful for all the work that you and all the department does right here, and then also on the mutual aid. And you're always in our thoughts and prayers, and so thank you for that, and we're just happy to see that new facility. And then also mentioned several times the press conference about the small business grants, and then a lot of follow-up conversations over this last week about how those will be done, and a lot of excitement out there in the business community about those being available. So we'll look forward to that first of the month with those applications coming out, and see how that plays out. See how many people can be helped from that. On the 16th, had a Rotary meeting for Porterville Sunrise Rotary via Zoom, and Paul Saldana from the Tulare County Economic Development Corporation and Sam Diaz were also on the call. They gave us the program that morning, and so I tuned in to see what they had to say, since we've been coordinating with them quite a bit here lately, and it was really a very good update, very informative, and I think everyone on the call enjoyed it. That evening had a installation of officers for the Porterville Exchange Club, and was honored to be asked to help them do that, to help swear them in to their offices. And just to take a second to say that all of the service clubs, over the past several years, really, the service clubs have been declining, but there's some active ones that are out there, and they just play a vital role in our community. So really proud of Rotary, really proud of the Exchange Club and others that are out there really making a difference in our communities. This week, space planning ad hoc meeting tomorrow, and we'll be looking at facilities and some things coming up and adjusting and planning for the future, adjusting to our current situations, and we'll look forward to seeing what we can do, pull our heads together and brainstorm a little bit about what we can do with county facilities. And then the 23rd is Rotary again. The 28th, I'll be meeting with CAL FIRE. The new Tulare Unit Chief Jesse Estrada is going to come over to Porterville to my office. We'll visit for a little while. I did get a chance to speak with him a little bit at Fire Station 1 ribbon cutting, but we're going to just visit a little bit more, get to know each other, brainstorm about some ways that we can partner together, especially on the forest, and then we're going to run out and take a look at the air attack base over at the airport in Porterville. And on the 29th, Porterville Chamber of Commerce, our Government Affairs Committee meeting will be held, again via Zoom, and we'll get a chance to get updates from our federal and state elected officials, along with city and tribal leaders. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Townsend. All right. So a few items that I did want to go over this morning. A couple things I thought last week's Fire Station 1 ribbon cutting was outstanding. I think that it's wonderful to have a facility of that caliber added to the inventory of Tulare County fire stations. It's definitely deserving of the Fire Station 1 name, and I thought the chief did a great job. And it was really great to see all the support from local agencies as well. Really helped to show what a family the fire service really is. The San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority meeting, as my colleagues mentioned, went very well last week. We actually are looking at hopefully a decrease in rates, but we do have a couple more months that need to be considered before the rates are set for the upcoming plan year. So I am hopeful that we will at least be holding at no increase and possibly even a decrease when those rates are finally set in either August or early September. Small Business Assistance Program, we did have a press conference last week, and I've been getting a lot of phone calls from constituents who are interested in the program. I think that it's really great to have an opportunity or a resource available to businesses that have sort of fallen through the cracks, and I'm really glad that the board made the changes that we did at last week's board meeting to allow for entrepreneurial companies to potentially take advantage of that, as well as nonprofits and independent contractors. I think that will serve us very well, and again, want to remind businesses out there to pay attention to the Workforce Investment Board website between August 1st and August 15th. That is when the applications are going to be solicited. So if it's a need for you, please pay attention to that. I've been getting a lot of calls from superintendents and principals at local schools interested in what is going to be happening in the fall, and that was prior to the governor coming out on Friday and basically saying nothing's going to be happening except for there is a waiver process, and I know that Health and Human Services is working its way through that, but I have gotten several inquiries, and I've given them all your personal email address, Tim, so hopefully you'll be getting a lot of contact there. I want to thank General Services. I've been working with Brooke Sisk over at General Services, working on a couple of park projects. They're very small parks, but often the parks that fly under the radar are the greatest in value to communities. There are two parks that we are going to be working on, just some projects that I think will really help to spruce them up and make them more of a recreational opportunity for residents there, and those are parks in Alpaugh and in Pixley. We've got some tree enhancements happening in Alpaugh, and in Pixley we've got some trash receptacles and some disc golf course enhancements taking place there. And I know that General Services continues to look for grants in all of our parks, but especially in the isolated rural communities. I know that there's such a huge need there, and so I appreciate their great work there to help enhance those community resources. A couple meetings I wanted to highlight that are upcoming. Tomorrow there is a Tulare County Employees Retirement Association board meeting at 8:30 at the Tessera Board Chambers. There's a space planning ad hoc committee at 10 a.m. as Supervisor Townsend mentioned. And then there's also tomorrow at 4 o'clock in Tulare at the Heritage Complex an International Agri-Center board meeting. Those are all of the items that I wanted to highlight this morning, and I will now continue on today's agenda and take up item 2. Item 2 is a request to present a proclamation recognizing the week of July 19th through 25th as Probation Services Week in Tulare County. I almost forgot how to even introduce the agenda item. It's been so long since we've done a proclamation, but I thank the chief for being willing to come forward today. So I want to give you a chance if you'd like to make any comments, and I'll present you with the proclamation, Chief.
I would. Good morning, Chairman, Board, CAO, and Council. Thank you for taking a moment today to recognize the important work of probation professionals and the critical work they do on a daily basis to change lives and build safer communities. Probation is a unique and often misunderstood profession, and during this week, it's important for our community to understand the essential work probation does to enhance the safety of our communities by helping clients succeed. Probation has many responsibilities in the justice system, serving as its backstop and safety net. We embrace this role because of our unique expertise and trained officers who are equipped to effectively supervise and support clients. Probation officers and staff are dedicated to serving communities and helping clients end the cycle of crime through the use of evidence-based practices and programming that are proven to reduce recidivism. Our mission is to assess and address the root of what is affecting our clients. Whether that be a mental illness, homelessness, or addiction, probation depends on professional practices and programming proven to help adults and youth lead safe, independent, and healthy lives. In a proclamation commemorating Probation Service Week from Governor Newsom, he stated, quote, "Probation departments have a profound impact on the safety and health of our communities by working to reduce recidivism through evidence-based programming and supervision. Probation success ensures that our state's communities are a safer environment for all Californians to live and prosper." End quote. And in closing, especially during this national pandemic, it is important to take a moment to recognize the essential work of probation professionals who've worked tirelessly adjusting to the new norms while balancing the needs of many who could not successfully navigate systems, society, nor care for themselves without our support. Therefore, during Probation Service Week, it is important to recognize probation officers and staff for their dedication to their clients and our community, regardless of the challenge. Thank you.
Steal your microphone here and swing it around this way. Chief, thank you for coming today and feeling comfortable to be here and accept this proclamation. I think it's great to be presenting this to you and great to recognize your department, because I know the diligent work that you do and the important role that you play in the reintroduction of offenders back into the community to lead productive lives. And you have taken on a role of helping to equip them with skills and provide facilities that will help these people to be successful when they do return to life in normal society. So I appreciate your efforts, and your work is certainly to be commended. So this proclamation is from the Tulare County Board of Supervisors recognizing July 19th through 25th, 2020 as Probation Services Week in Tulare County. Whereas the Tulare County Probation Department is an essential part of the criminal justice system, and whereas probation professionals uphold the law with dignity while recognizing the right of the public to be safeguarded from criminal activity. And whereas probation staff are trained professionals who provide services and referrals for offenders. And whereas probation staff work in partnership with law enforcement agencies, community organizations, and groups to provide public safety services to our communities and rehabilitative programs to offenders. And whereas probation staff provides support and protection for victims and helps them to recover restitution for these victims. Whereas probation staff promote prevention, intervention, advocacy, and offender accountability. And whereas probation professionals advocate community and restorative justice. Now therefore be it resolved that Tulare County Board of Supervisors does hereby recognize the week of July 19th through 25th, 2020 as Probation Services Week in Tulare County and encourages all citizens to honor these law enforcement professionals and recognize their achievements. Signed by Kyler Crocker, Pete Vanderpool, Amy Shucklian, Eddie Valero, and Dennis Townsend. It's my pleasure to present this to you. I know that COVID protocol doesn't really allow us to take a photo, but I'm feeling healthy and well. Are you feeling healthy and well? You can come over here and take a picture with me.
One, two, three.
Okay, now we will continue on our agenda for today and move on to item 3, which is a request to receive an update from the Health and Human Services Agency on COVID-19 status and response efforts in Tulare County. Mr. Lutz, good morning.
Good morning. It is morning this time, so I can safely say that. Tim Lutz, Health and Human Services Agency Director. I'm here for weekly report to your board. So our case levels, as of this morning, 7,120 COVID positive individuals. That's up from 6,209 last week, and it's a 14.67% increase. We also, unfortunately, saw an additional 15 deaths from last week, bringing our total to 168 deaths as of this morning. And then 3,821 people considered recovered. Our weekly levels ended at 954, which is roughly the same level as it was the prior week, a 2.25% increase. These levels are still extremely high. We're adding roughly 1,000 cases a week at the current rate, although the positive piece to that is that at least we see it hopefully stabilizing a little bit, and then we'll hopefully, with the interventions in place, start to see decreases in those case levels. The new case rate did show a decrease from last week as well. It's down 10.5%. So today, or yesterday I should say, 393.1 per 100,000. Last week I reported we were at 427 per 100,000. So again, an indicator going in the direction we'd like to see. Our testing positivity, you might recall last week, was 13.9% unadjusted. That adjusted down to 12.1%. And again, we might see it adjust down a little further. And then our preliminary 12.8% for this last week. Our effective continues to remain relatively stable, changing from 1.09 to 1.07. California overall is at 1.08, and then some of our surrounding counties have higher R effectives at this point. Kings County 1.19 and Fresno County 1.12, and then Kearns is lower at 1.06. So taken together, the metrics do show some level of stabilizing. I'll note again, it's a positive sign. However, we do have a lot of work in order to effectively get off the monitoring list. The case rate and positivity metrics, we would need to see 75% decrease in our case rate, or we would need to see our positivity go down by 1/3 in order for us to effectively start to reopen some of those industries and reopen schools to in-person learning. Those factors, if we bring down, would then have a direct impact on our hospitalization rates and start to then see us in more comfortable territory. Moving to the hospitalizations, we know that we continue to see it fluctuating around a range between 70 to 90 patients hospitalized. We're down 2.3% from last week at 84. It is important to note that we have also been sending patients to the Porterville Alternative Care site, and so that's going to factor into those hospitalization numbers going down. Yesterday, we had a pretty concerning issue with Sierra View and their capacity. They were reporting that their inpatient units were at capacity and their emergency room had a 9-hour wait time. Obviously that prompted our public health emergency preparedness team to work with them last night, start to identify some staffing options. I'm happy to report this morning things let up a little bit. They were able to get some additional staff in, but we're still evaluating some longer-term staffing for them, including it up to what we were able to work with on Quia Delta and the Department of Defense unit that is currently at Quia Delta. Our testing capacity does continue, as I noted last week, be a challenge. Overall, our public health lab continues to test at a very high volume, and there are some struggles, but they've been able to keep up with the workload. We do continue to see a decline in the number of commercial tests based on the availability in the commercial labs slowing down, sending out collection kits and others to try and reduce overall volume in the system. And then obviously the big item, schools, that was released on Friday the 17th. And what that is requiring then is full distance learning for schools for the counties on the monitoring list. And then the schools within a local health jurisdiction that are on the monitoring list must continue full distance learning until a county is off the monitoring list for a full 14 days. As the chairman mentioned, there is a waiver process designed for elementary schools. The superintendent of that or equivalent in some of the private institutions must make a request for a waiver. The local health officer reviews that request, taking into account the local community epidemiological data, interventions, and also that must be in consultation with California Department of Public Health on approving those waivers. There's still lack of clarity from the state on what that process is going to entail. This evening's call with CDPH and health officers is set to discuss that topic. Unfortunately, I wish they could have done it on a Monday night before a board meeting. But this is evolving. What we're doing then is looking at those requests on a case-by-case basis once we understand what the state's process is, and I'm working with each of those respective schools on what their plans would be.
Yes, in addition to what Chairman Vanderpool said with regards to calls being received by superintendents and other school officials, is there any way where we can, and I don't know if this is happening already, but coordinating kind of more effectively with the county and the county office of ed in terms of getting like all superintendents in the same room with the health officer and kind of answering any questions that they may have, continuing to kind of monitor the progress as they move forward. Just because, again, I've been getting a lot of questions as well. And so just wondering how that coordinated effort can look like now and into the future.
Absolutely. Friday, late Friday after the announcement, the county health officer, Dr. Hott, Karen Elliott, and myself had a meeting with Tim Heyer to discuss just that coordination and his initial feeling and working with the various superintendents across the county. We've offered that we would be happy to sit down and have that discussion. My understanding was he was taking that back to superintendents and seeing if there was an interest and a need, and we would get that on the books. But we have worked closely with Office of Education throughout throughout COVID and continue to be a resource at their request. In addition to criteria saying whether or not a school can open, the state also identified criteria for when and if schools are open for in-person, under what circumstances must they be closed. And what the state's indicating is a school with multiple cohort outbreaks would be something that would be a trigger. And then what we'd be looking at is where 5% of the total teacher, student, staff population is COVID positive. Under those circumstances, the district would need to close that school. Generally, after cleaning and disinfection, that school would be able to open after 14 days, again, depending on the circumstances and overall what the county's epidemiological metrics are. Additionally, if 25% or more of the schools in a district have closed within 14 days, then that's the trigger that the district itself needs to close all schools within that district, following that same 14-day protocol. That was it for the school piece. Moving on to some of the industry rollbacks and updated guidance. I'm happy to report that there was additional guidance updated on a number of outdoor types of personal care services, such as nail salons, hair cutting, barber shops, all being permitted to operate outdoors. That guidance does specify that electrology, tattooing, and piercing all cannot operate outdoors, and the rationale behind that is because they are invasive enough procedures that require a more controlled hygienic environment. And then just brief activity snapshots. Porterville Adult, I do that every single time. It's old area agency on aging hat that just can't let that one go. Porterville Alternative Care Site is reporting a current census of 17 total patients. Thus far through that facility have been 36. So again, a number have come in and been discharged.
And the capacity of that facility again?
Current capacity is 50. The theoretical capacity, if we saw a larger surge, could be up to 150 if more staffing were brought in to accommodate that.
Thank you.
And then we're continuing to try and get information out of the strike teams that the state established. We know there has been activity. What the ABC alcohol beverage control licensing had indicated to us is that with the citations that were issued for businesses in Tulare County, they would be submitting those citations to the district attorney's office and filing accusations against licenses under the guise of violating the governor's order, which is carried under Government Code Section 8665. And then on activities, we are working with United Health Centers to provide testing to the community of Allensworth. We anticipate all of the details for that being wrapped up by the end of July and beginning the rollout process to do enhanced testing and surveillance in that community and others. I think that's where we're going to start to see some more movement in the future, where we're doing some more like antigen-based testing. It's not as sensitive in terms of detecting COVID, so we wouldn't use it in a skilled nursing facility probably, or an area that we need to have very defined and accurate results. However, in broader communities, because it's a less invasive test, it does give us a better idea for surveillance of where we might have a larger number of positives within that community.
And real quick, Tim, before you get off that point, thank you for responding to the need. I know that several members of the community had reached out to me regarding some concern about the outbreak in Allensworth, and because of their remote location and the lack of even county facilities out there to help disseminate information, there really is a void. And so showing a presence and providing that resource in the community is absolutely critical. And you also mentioned there are maybe some other communities, and I hope that there will be, because I know there is a similar outbreak and concern in the community of Early Mart. And really what their request is additional information. So anything that we can do to provide information, whether it's through school resource bases or any county facility within any of these isolated communities, like in Alpaw or in Pixley or Early Mart, we have county presence through fire stations or libraries, etc. Whatever we can do just to get information and put posters on a business that has an environmental health license, or just making them available, I think could really go a long ways. And I think that there may be a lot that we don't even know about that's taking place in these communities due to their proximity and lack of county presence in their jurisdiction. So anything we can do proactively would be much appreciated.
I appreciate that feedback, and I full-heartedly agree. That's our smaller, isolated communities are our biggest concern right now in terms of those testing deserts and resource deserts, where we really want to be bringing those mobile resources to the community rather than expecting the community to find a way to come to us through services.
Sure. Thank you.
And speaking on cluster deserts, would there also be an opportunity for testing a cluster, say, in a manufacturing plant or for field workers at a particular location? Do we see any of that happening as well, or are we mostly identifying communities in the general terms?
We're doing some of both. We continue to have an active project to do enhanced testing within the farm working community. We're also working with Proteus with the newly released funds for doing housing in a similar way that we are doing Project Room Key, where we can help do testing within the community, provide resources, and then also offer housing where sometimes it's just not feasible for them to distance in their residence. So it's a little of both. The testing capacity, we had grand plans and we were on a pretty aggressive trajectory, and then when testing became a constraint, that slowed down our progress a little bit. But we do want to do both. We want to be making sure we're identifying unique pockets where we know, like the farm working community, where we have spread and we just don't have enough testing and resources within that population, but then also identifying communities. We were able to get a grant through Department of Public Health, going with our lab to pay for additional enhanced surveillance and testing in 3 to 5 communities within the county. What we're doing is identifying where those needs are greatest and
District 2.
trying to send the resources to those areas. And in South County, North County, we know those are some pretty significant gaps for us.
Because I know that the experience is being felt in these communities, given the fact that I know early on it was maybe a 1-day, 2-day wait when you signed on for COVID testing at the Dinuba Veterans Hall, and now it's about 5-6 days in before you can get a test, and then in addition to that, you have to wait for your reporting, which is another 6 to 7 days. So it's just, there's just much need out there right now.
Well, and the lag makes it completely ineffective for any type of contact tracing if you're trying to piece together the last 10, 14 days of someone's time when they've been positive, because we're waiting for those results. So we are working with CDPH. We are working with our community-based organizations to do testing. The challenges with the updated testing guidelines from the state, it does reestablish basically where we started, which is having those priority tiers of, you're testing your symptomatic hospitalized patients, your SNF residents first, then you're going to your next tier where you're getting into some of your essential workers. but you have to get far enough down that list where we're going back to asymptomatic. So we're making those adjustments. We're trying to retarget messaging, and as we see commercial lab turnaround times improve, trying to leverage those Optum sites to be doing some of that testing as well.
Thank you.
Supervisor Shuckley?
Off of that, I was going to mention this anyway, but so talking about asymptomatic, so just because you're feeling healthy and well doesn't mean that you can't be, asymptomatic and still pass the virus, correct?
There's a lot of asymptomatic individuals. I was just.
I know,
proclamation, yeah.
but for the public need,
General
yes,
public
yes.
knowledge, yes.
Absolutely, and before we were encouraging people because there was capacity to get tested. Now, again, we're asking people for patience and diligence on isolating. The most effective measures that we can be doing, again, wearing the mask, avoiding gatherings, and practicing social distancing.
Dennis, Supervisor Townsend?
Thanks, Tim. When we start to go back to that tiered testing where we're going to be prioritizing, are we going to expect to see an uptick in percentage of positives since we're only going to be testing mostly symptomatic people?
That's a great question. It is definitely a possibility because going back to, if you're targeting those that you feel are probably symptomatic, then you're probably going to see an uptick in positivity, and I think we'll have to look at that closely. Realistically, hopefully the supply chains will start to open up and we'll be able to do broader testing again, but we might see a bump. That's a great point.
Thanks.
And really, the only other thing I was going to say is our Project Room Key, 109 individuals being served with Project Room Key, and that concludes.
Total cost, do you have that item?
Total cost, thank you, I did miss that one. Total cost for response to date, $3,042,000.
All right, well, thank you very much. Supervisor Crocker?
Thank you. I just echo some of the comments that were made earlier about the elementary schools, that as that waiver process develops and as you figure that out, it'd be very helpful to see what that is and to give folks options. Just speaking for, I think the only school district in the state that remained open in Outside Creek, I'm sure that they would be interested in that, as well as some other very small school districts that really have very localized impacts as far as whether or not they're seeing cases. And I think there could probably have make some very strong cases as why they could still socially distance and be able to do that based on how many classrooms they have, how small they are, et cetera. So, because I have had some other conversations with other school officials regarding that. And then if you could just maybe discuss or describe kind of ABC's enforcement practices. I know in your report you said that they are referring citations to the DA's office, so they're looking for criminal charges. So they cite people, and then if then they take the next step and then want criminal activities. We've got zero bail and people are going out left and right. The governor's commuting murderer sentences, but we're going to go after restaurants.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when that was the response back, just in terms of what their next steps were. My understanding from early information was that it was more of a monetary penalty than it was a criminal penalty. So, and again, we got this over the weekend, so that's pretty fresh in terms of our getting that, and we still haven't gotten really more detail about what, we don't even know what businesses ABC went to. We know with OSHA where they went to, we were able to get that information, but ABC hasn't been forthcoming on providing that, and that's after multiple requests. So we're still trying to get a better idea of what exactly it means by what charges they're asking to be filed, whether it's part of, their process to do the actual citation, and that's just the venue they have to do for that, or if there's more that they're pursuing. So we'll try and research, pull more information together, and provide that to the board, but right now they haven't been forthcoming with information.
That'd be helpful. I think just understanding what their process is, what the various steps are, and then and how they're going about it would be good. As we're taking efforts to try and protect businesses, the state's trying to kill them. That's all I have.
Just a final few things, Tim. Follow up on the youth sports. I know that the CIF came out and postponed all fall sports seasons till the winter, January. I wanted to make sure that we got some guidance out to not only Tulare County sports organizations in the school system, but also other extracurricular sporting groups, so that they can provide that guidance to their players. I know that some local leagues are sending out frantic emails, due to guidance that has just recently come out. We need to stop practicing. So they are already practicing. They are already training absent such guidance. So I want to make sure that we can get that out. Really is about getting information out. I know we've got some great resources, some great websites, other reference tools for members of the public, but just want to make sure that we get that out there. I think that's very important. And then on the school reopening, I appreciate your approach in realizing that not every school can be painted the same. There are unique settings, and we have to remember, in many of the rural, isolated communities, a school may be the only source of nutrition for children or families, and I think that that's very, very important that we remember the resource that a school is to residents and students beyond just a learning environment for them. So I think it's, have to look beyond certain things, and I'm glad that you have a process in place to be able to look at that with your public health staff. I think that's going to be very important. And lastly, just thank you for the work that you and your public health staff are doing. I mean, man, here we are, 5 months into this thing, and still going strong, doing a great job, and appreciate the work that you're doing. Continue to get the information out to the residents, because that's the one way that we can stem this curve or curb the increases that we're seeing. So knowledge is power, and I appreciate your effort to get that information out to our community in a culturally competent manner. Supervisor Valero?
Yes, and I just wanted to just share, again, going back to the schools, which I do value what has already been shared with my two colleagues with regards to variation, that there are some schools out there that see a difference. However, my approach would also be that there's consistency, and there's consistency across the board for Tulare County schools moving forward, so that we don't see an equity of education where some can go and some can't. So that's why I say that it's imperative that we work with our school district, the County Office of Ed, and our superintendents across the board, so that way we move our students together under the same umbrella. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tim, again for all your hard work and for your presentation. We will now move on and take up item 4, which is public comments. At this time, I do have a few requests in front of me. First, I will call forward Jenny Pena. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Thank you.
Morning. Mine basically is a comment, and my name's Jenny Pena. I live in Tulare, but I work at the Department of Child Support Services. My comment is this. I just finished checking the internet, and I noticed that there are still county offices closed, a few, if not 4. We had an incident where we were closed recently just for cleaning. We are back to work yesterday. The ones that I saw were one employee for those county offices. As of today, we have 2 that the employees know of. Do you see my question? My comment is, I sort of feel like we're the stepchild of the county. We just came from a place where we had an issue last year with bed bugs. We stood open. The morale of my coworkers over management was very, very low, as Mr. Britt is aware of. We're beginning to plunge again in that morale issue as to where do we fit in with the county? Where do we matter? One of the coworkers that tested positive is an acquaintance of mine. I tested this weekend. My results are not in. For your sake and everybody else here, I wear this mask because you matter, but I matter too. And I just don't get where the thinking process is as to where you prioritize people. My unit is OSU, maybe 25, I'll exaggerate, 25 by 25 foot. 9 employees. How do I feel safe there? I personally requested to be moved to the main floor so that I could be just a little bit further from other workers for their sake as well as mine. But what I don't get is where the prioritization takes place. Sure, I commend the fact that they have people teleworking. That's a good thing. Have to give them credit for that. But there are still many others that cannot, like myself. We handle tangible paperwork. And before the fact that there have been 2 people tested positive, right now, we are open to the public, to each other. But yet all these other offices are closed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mhm.
Next, I have a request from Laura Hernandez. Please come forward, state your name and address.
Good morning, board members. My name is Laura Hernandez. My address is 3215 West Sunnyside Court, Visalia, California, 93277. I am in District 3, Amy Strickland's district. Today I'm here just to talk about COVID-19 testing. I'm here as a resident of Tulare County. I know I'm an employee, but my hat right now is just a resident of Tulare County. So in late June, my mother, who lives in Lindsay, was tested for COVID-19. She came to my house because she doesn't have access to internet, so I went ahead and scheduled her an appointment. Mind you, she didn't have any issues with her. She was just so concerned that when she went to the grocery store, people weren't wearing masks. So her anxiety levels were really high, and I managed to get a test through, I'm not sure exactly what the company was, but I know that it was LHI Care, where the results came from, in the Memorial Building in Porterville. So her testing took 2 days, which it was good because she felt so relieved and she didn't have to take on anxiety medication anymore now. So she's doing good. And then in late June, I decided to go get tested because I thought, they talk about asymptomatic people, and what if I'm sick? Because I have allergies, and as you know, we live in the Central Valley, allergies, you could think that it's probably that. So my testing took about 10 days, and that was through Korea Delta. Of course, I've heard different stories. So my concern and main reason for being here today is that we have different groups testing, and it just seems like there's a disconnect. I can go over here 2 days, I can go over here 14 days or 10 days, and so it just seemed like there's some disconnect somewhere. So what I would like the board to ensure or to consider looking at is to figure out what's going on, what's the disconnect. Maybe they can share what the best practices are, LHI Care and Korea Delta. I don't know what that might look like. Maybe they can work closer together, kind of feed off each other. And then maybe they can figure out what they need to do to communicate and educate that information a lot sooner to individuals. So again, as a longtime resident of Tulare County, my mom received her results faster than I did, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I thought about the fact, what if I wasn't working for where I work, where I'm very grateful, but sometimes people just can't be off for more than 14 days to quarantine if they're living on a single income. Okay, that was it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your
Thank you for your comment. I have a request from Sabina Ramos. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Yeah.
Good morning, Board. I just have a couple of comments because I, Sabina Ramos, is the president of Tulare County SEIU Chapter 521. I hope that we can continue working together, but it's not happening. I have people calling me all hours of the night of their concerns of where they're working. Somebody came up to me today and said that they were contacted, was told that they were contacted by a tracer, somebody. They took it upon themselves to test to protect themselves, their family, and their coworkers. This individual was told she's low risk, so you can come into work on Monday. My problem is high risk, low risk, some risk. You're still at risk. I don't understand why our department is, we were told that people were COVID-19. They closed our shop on Wednesday or Tuesday at 2 o'clock. They knew at 1:34, but they waited till 2 o'clock. I don't understand why. Once 2 o'clock hit, then you guys can go home. We were out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but come into work Monday. Other departments that have COVID, they're out 2 weeks. They're out 3 weeks. We were only out for 6 days. I have people that have low risk COVID in our department because they're being tested, but we're told to come to work. I was told by a coworker that you guys are sending us off to be slaughtered. Right now, that's what it's looking like. You, as the Board of Supervisors, have the right to protect the employees. Just looking at the mission statement part of it, of course, says Tulare County government strives to earn the trust, respect, support of the residents through collaboration, fair and effective service. Where is that happening? When I looked online, because that's what we have access to, 213 cases tested yesterday in Tulare County. That's a lot. And Tim Lux is doing a wonderful job. I'll give him that. My hat's off to you. Hats off to a couple of you guys up on the stage. But Tulare County is cute. We do creative accounting. Tulare has 144 cases as of yesterday. Porterville, 109. Dinuba, 814. Early Mart, 301. Lindsay and Orosi, 299, 281. Farmersville, whatever they're doing, you guys need to figure out what they're doing because they only have 183 cases. Visalia, this is where the creative accounting comes in. In area 93291, 880 cases. And area code 93277, 600. 93292, 538. For a grand total of 2,024. And again, you guys are having us work in an area with low-risk individuals. My problem is low risk, high risk, some risk, you're still at risk. Nobody's safe from this, and people are having anxiety attacks regarding this. And because people are coming to me, that's why I'm coming to you. Can you please, as elected officials, take note and do something?
Thank you for your comments. I have a request from Euler Torres. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Euler Torres. I am the president of LULAC Council 3273, but I'm also on the spot committee. And I came to give you guys a report. I did the training, the similar training up at the jail, which was very interesting. I got to meet other fellow spot committee members. And I was really happy about the committee because it's very diverse. And even though we did have difference of views, we were able to sit down and talk about those views. And when you can have conversations, I think that's a great step forward. I also volunteered to go on a ride-along. My first ride-along was for 2 hours in the Pixley substation. And in the first 2 hours I was on there, there was an accident fatality from a person from out of state. So I was able to learn the process of the sheriff department communicating with the family of the deceased, which was just to be an officer, to be in that position was very, to me, would be very emotionally draining. And I didn't believe I got to feel what it's like to be an officer. So then I re-volunteered again this past Friday, and I did a 12-hour shift. But me not scheduling myself correctly, I was up for 25 hours that day. But it was a great experience. There's an incident that happened in Delano that 2 children were killed on a drive-by shooting that's bleeding into Early Mart and Pixley. So there was the officers that were very thankful that the gang task force was out there, but when they're not, you only have 3 officers down there covering from Tipton, Pixley, and all those rural areas. So to me, that's a concern that we don't have enough officers. And I was asking the officers, why do we don't have any? One of their concerns is of the, how do you call it, payment, salary. They're getting outbid by other agencies around the county. Also, on our first call on Friday, it was a young girl who called the police that, oh no, the parents called that she was running away. When we got there, the girl was making very serious allegations. The parents were non-English speakers. And I was able to translate what I found out. She was a schizophrenic. And that changed the whole conversation because the allegations she was making were going to get the parents arrested. So I would like to have more bilingual officers. But my main concern about that whole thing, it's about a place called Little TJ in Early Mart. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but those people, and I would like to invite the county supervisors, if we could all go and just so you guys can see the conditions that people are living out there. There's no running water, there is no electricity, and it's horrible. So as LULAC, I would like to invite you guys to come out, Mr. Vanderpool and anybody else. And I'm available. I'm going to volunteer, and I'm going to be doing the Cutler Orosi area, and I'll just be coming, giving you guys reports of whatever we're seeing out there. And for the messaging out to the county, especially now in those places, the majority are Spanish speaking. If the county needs help, we'll gladly help sending messaging out there.
Thank you for your
guys.
comments. Next, I have a request from Pamela. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Pamela. I'm not going to give any more information than that because of the gang stalking going on online. Yes, gang stalking. I don't want to touch it. I'm short. You understand, Amy? Okay. You're welcome. Like I said, there's gang stalking going on online. So if I'm here, I noticed a couple of weeks ago, there was information online about somebody watching, and there was a red line saying racist. Now, this woman didn't do anything racist, and as far as I'm concerned. And that is another issue about coming up and talking. You can be targeted online, and it translates into real life being hunted down and having you fired from your job. So I'm here today to address the COVID-19. Amy, you know I emailed you asking you to inquire with Tim about what therapies are working. What do we have an answer to treating this? Is there anything as far as therapy going that's proven to cut the time you're sick and the damage being done to your lungs? Now, I was trying to figure out why only, 24 or 26 of the 86 from last week's report were on remdesivir. So I did some research and found that the FDA says you have to have a O2 saturation level of 94 or less. Now, at that point, you're sick. Your lungs are damaged. And I think that's an awkward thing to do, is to treat somebody with an antiviral after they're in the hospital for one, and then after their lungs quit working. I wonder about that. And I think that is wrong. And then also, they recommend against using a corticosteroid in your lungs. But we also know budesonide is very effective in stopping the cytokine storm. Now, I'm not a doctor. I've never played one on TV, but this stuff is pretty easy to understand. And I think that a lot of the fear and the panic that the community is experiencing is because we don't know how to treat this. There is no known therapy from the CDC, the FDA. They're all saying, we don't know what to do, but we do. We are finding things working. We need to inform our population what is working. Are we finding that this is happening? That these things that the doctors are trying, they go into these little meetings and they come out going, okay, they talked about their cases. I want to know what that is. If we get a good report on that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Are there any public comment requests from members of the audience who are here today? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Alberto Aguilar, and I'm here to go ahead and talk and inform you, the Board of Supervisors as well as the public, about the ongoing mismanagement and misuse of public funds at the Tulare Public Cemetery. Chairman Pete Vanderpool is well aware of what's going on, but the rest of the board members or the rest of the Board of Supervisors are not, and most of the public is not. So I'm going to read to you an email that I sent out on July 1st to our board chair and to the office manager. It states, I am requesting that the following subject regarding the Tulare Public Cemetery District be placed on the next board meeting agenda. Number 1, office manager refusing to provide me with requested financial records of the district regarding expenditures of district funds. Number 2, office manager hiring her daughter to work under her supervision at the district office. Number 3, office manager falsifying official records, including but not limited to employees' time cards. Number 4, office manager's ongoing misuse of public funds. Number 5, the removal of, and I'm not going to mention her name, but she's on the audit committee, due to death threats that she's made against me. And I indicate that all illegal activities under the leadership of the board need immediate attention. Today, I followed up with another email. Again, it's to the board chair and the office manager. At 4:47 p.m., I received a copy of the agenda for the regular board meeting scheduled for Thursday, July 23rd, 2020 at 1 p.m. And you have not placed the items that I requested to be placed on the agenda since July 1st, 2020. Steve, you called an emergency board meeting on July 9th and a special board meeting on July 15, 2020, but you did not include any of the items that I requested since July 1st, 2020, and you have not offered any reason for not wanting to comply with my request. It appears to me that you are being disrespectful and arrogant by ignoring my concerns regarding the ongoing mismanagement of the Tulare Public Cemetery District. All of the trustees of the Tulare Public Cemetery District are aware, or should be aware, and concerned about the ongoing mismanagement practice by the office manager that include, but are not limited to, all the items that I have requested to be placed on the agenda. Falsifying payroll records is a crime, specifically when employees are being paid for hours not earned. District policy and California labor laws require employees to be paid based on the actual hours worked and not based on a monthly average. As chairman of the district's audit committee, your committee reviewed the employees' payroll records and confirmed that the manager was guilty of falsifying payroll records, but you elected not to hold her accountable for criminal activities. The California State Constitution, Article 16, Section 6, prohibits the gift of public funds. However, this is an ongoing practice at the Tulare Public Cemetery District by the office manager who has the support of the 3 officers on the Board of Trustees. For example, giving employees Christmas gift bonuses in December of last year, paying employees for more hours of bereavement leave than allowed per district policy, payment of holiday pay not consistent with district policy, and the hiring her daughter to work under her supervision at the district office. Since you and the office manager have been refusing to provide me with the district's financial records that I have been requesting in order to perform my fiduciary duties as a trustee, you leave me no choice but to take legal action against the district. As supervisors, you're the ones who appoint the trustees to the special district, specifically to the board, to cemetery boards, okay? And as supervisors, you have the power to go ahead and take over a cemetery. It's been done in the past, and you ought to consider what's going on and maybe have it done again.
Thank you for your comments. Can you wrap up your comments, Mr.
Yes.
Aguilar? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Because eventually, the Tulare Public Cemetery, if it continues going the same path that it's in right now, is going to go, and it's going to happen the same thing that happened to Tulare District Hospital. It's going to go bankrupt. Thank you very much, Chairman. I want to go ahead and introduce this and have it go ahead and put into the minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional public comments from members of the public in attendance at today's meeting? All right, seeing none, I will now ask the clerk if there is phone comment this morning.
Yes, we do have one.
Okay, please go ahead with that comment.
Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the boardroom. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Good morning. This is Blanca Escobedo, Policy Advocate for Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. I'm just calling in to support some comments made during the COVID-19 update on how some communities in the Valley and Tulare County are geographically isolated, and thus during this pandemic, and even before the pandemic, have had limited access and information to resources. What we've seen during the past couple of months in Pixley, Matheny, Tulaville, Ivanhoe, is that a lot of people are don't have access to internet, don't have access to information in their language, and so we really support the county furthering those resources and allocating even the CARES money to COVID-19 testing and information. Just wanted to call in to say in support of that. And also we wanted to call in to say that we are supportive of the county and want to encourage them to continue providing public participation options during this time, as other counties in the Valley have since restricted their public participation options. So please continue doing that, and we recommend even implementing video option and more language accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any additional public comments, Madam Clerk?
None.
Okay, at this time, we will close the public comment period, and we will take up the consent calendar. I have a request to pull item number 6 and 20 from the calendar. Item 18 will be pulled for public comment. Well, I'm going to go back after we do consent. Is there any item that a member of the public or a member of the board would like to pull for comment or separate consideration? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion on the balance of the consent calendar. Have a motion by Supervisor Townsend, a second by Supervisor Valero. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously on the balance of the consent calendar. We will now take up item 18, and that was pulled because we have a request for public comment. Madam Clerk, if you want to bring that comment in.
Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the boardroom. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hi, my name is Myra Becerra, and my address is 15966 Avenue 327, Ivanhoe, California. And I am wanting to make a public comment, so pulling Agenda 18 for... I know like it was getting approved, so I wanted to know if we would have a timeline that wasn't really my question, if they would be stating a timeline of when it would be done and like the dates of when it would happen, just because we as a town thought it was already happening. So if we're on the final phase, like if we could get a date on it. Thank you.
All right. Are there additional public comments, Madam Clerk?
1 second.
Okay. Mr. Shanky, would you like to speak related to this?
Good morning, Reed Shanky with the Resource Management Agency. In response to the question there, with this action, the board would be approving us to move forward with the advertisement of bids, and construction would be scheduled to begin in October of this year.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that clarification. Anything additional from members of the board on this item?
Mr. Chair, we still have one more caller
Oh.
coming back in for this item. Sorry.
Do we have more comment on that item?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the boardroom. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hi, this is Blanca Escobedo again with Leadership Council. We wanted to pull this item because we're in support of the county pursuing these types of projects. And we also had a comment from someone in Pixley who wasn't able to call today. Her name is Maria Arevalo, and her comment is that she says, thank you to RMA for continuing this project in Pixley. Roads, sidewalks, and more transportation objects are needed in Pixley. Pedestrian safety is a big concern, and we hope to see further investment in our communities. Thank you. And to further comments from myself, we just want to encourage investment in these communities in Ivanhoe, in Pixley, in Terabella, and everywhere else, because these types of projects improve pedestrian safety, improve active transportation, improve mobility, and overall healthy living. So we encourage the county to, like Myra had said earlier, to provide a timeline to these communities, because while we may have contact with some residents, it's only a limited amount of contact, and we wish for the rest of the communities to be aware of these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional public comments, Madam Clerk?
That concludes public comment for that one. You can go.
We're good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. At this time, Chair will entertain direction. All right. We have a motion by Supervisor Townsend and a second by Supervisor Valero. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimously. Thank you for that. We will now go back and take up our 9:30 timed items, and we will take up item 5, which is a public hearing, a request from the Resource Management Agency to authorize and approve the submittal of an application in an amount not to exceed $3,501,506 in grant funding from the State Department of Housing and Community Development Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program to fund various affordable housing activities in Tulare County within the 5-year plan. Mr. Aaron, how are you?
Doing really good. Chairman Vanderpool, Supervisors, CAO, Council, I am Aaron Bach. I'm the Assistant Director with the Resource Management Agency, and yet again, we have another grant for you to sign off on here. Really, the request today is this grant does require a public hearing, so we wanted to open and close the public hearing portion of it and get any comments we could. But for the most part, this program that's going to be created from this grant would give an allocation on an annual basis for 2 projects to self-help. One is here in the city of Visalia for 80 units. And the other one, that's at the lofts at Fort Visalia. And the other one is, of course, Goshen for the actual single-family homes, which is 89 units. Most of this money would be going towards paying for backbone infrastructure, but it would allow actual construction of the houses and the apartments themselves, and would also help assist homelessness in the fact that a lot of these units would go to people who are homeless. So I believe Betsy McGovern Garcia is on the phone if you have any questions from the applicant themselves, but that pretty much completes staff's report, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for Aaron at this time? I know that we do have some public comment on the phone. I'd like to open it for that.
There's none. No calls, please.
No calls, okay. Thank you very much. This is an action item. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Okay, great. We have a second by Supervisor Valero. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now take up item 6. I won't even read it because I have a feeling Aaron wants to keep this presentation very short.
Very, very short. Chairman, Supervisors, RMA is respectfully requesting that we continue this item to date certain August 4th, 2020. This is the development agreement number DEV 20-001 and tentative map number PPM 20-010 for the Omni Development Group in Goshen.
Okay. Any questions, comments from Board of Supervisors members? The public hearing is open and will remain open until the August 4th hearing date.
Just confirming the hearing will take place August 4th at 9:30 or shortly thereafter. Is that correct?
Right. And no notice is required as it is continued to date certain.
Okay, great. Any public comment at this time?
No.
Seeing no public comment, I will bring it back to the board for action. We have a motion by Supervisor Shucklian, a second by Supervisor Townsend. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. At this time, we will open the public hearing and take up item number 7, which is a request from the Resource Management Agency to adopt the Planning Commission's recommendations and findings of approval for General Plan Amendment number GPA 20-007, change of zone number PZ 20-002, and tentative subdivision map number TSM 20-001 for Gamaliel Aguilar to change the zone on one 12-acre parcel located at 13198 Avenue 232, Tulare, California.
Thank you, Chairman, Supervisors, CAO, County Council, Aaron Bach, RMA Assistant Director. And before you today is a general plan amendment, zone change, and tentative subdivision map for Gil Aguilar, and his representatives are here. Jesus from Skylab Residential Designs. So the location is at 13198 Avenue 232 on the north side of the intersection of Avenue 232, State Highway 137 and Road 132 east of the city of Tulare. On May 13th, 2020, the Planning Commission recommended that the board approve GPA 20-007, PZC 20-002, and TSM 20-001. The Resource Management Agency proposes to expand the hamlet boundary of East Tulare Villa northward and encompass approximately 79 additional acres, and to change the county's land use designation on that acreage from Valley Ag to mixed use. The zone change itself proposes to change the zoning on the 12 acres, part of the subdivision map, from AE 40 to RA 87s. The TSM 20-01 proposes to subdivide the 12-acre parcel into 6 2-acre lots. As you can see, the location is east of the city of Tulare, north of the existing East Tulare Villa. This project is consistent with the general plan. The county, upon its own initiation, as we are proposing here, can initiate the expansion to 79 acres. We were a little, we had originally wanted to expand the boundary northward of East Tulare Villa when we approved that a couple years back, but really didn't have any development interests at that location, but now we do. So we do want to move forward, as that is in the eastward expansion area for the city. So in addition, Gil had made the request to just expand it on his acreage, but again, we wanted to go from 12 acres to 79 acres, as you can see on this map here. So the 12 acres is the map on the right that shows the site, and the 79 acres would encompass the rest of that grayed-in area. Here's the zoning map. The zoning itself is AE 40, and we're proposing to change it to RA 87s. And here's the subdivision map itself. The only comment we got was from Caltrans. They didn't want direct access to the state route, so instead they're going to have an easement to Road 132. That completes staff's presentation. I'm here to answer any questions, as is the agent. Gil unfortunately couldn't make it today, but we are sure we can answer your questions.
Okay, are there any questions from board members? Members of the public or public comment? I think that you got to step over to that one. Just push Aaron out of the way.
He does every time. Yeah. Well, it's been a long, good morning. It's been a long time getting here, but we finally did it. A long process. I would like to thank you folks, for your consideration. I think that, and I apologize for Mr. Aguilar not being here today. So I think that we don't have a lot of comments, except for the fact that we just. No, I think we're good. We're good with what he has presented. And so if there's any questions that we can maybe try to help out, we'd be glad to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, any additional public comment, Madam Clerk? Okay, seeing no public comment, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and action. Here we have a motion by Supervisor Valero, second by Supervisor Townsend. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimously. We will now move on and take up and open the public hearing for item 8, which is a request from the Resource Management Agency to accept the Tulare County Planning Commission recommendation and approve an addendum to the 2017 Final Environmental Impact Report for the 2017 Animal Confinement Facilities Plan and the 2017 Dairy and Feedlot Climate Action Plan. And you can continue on reading, Mr. Washam.
Thank you. We're here today to talk about an amendment to, for consideration for your board, for amendment to the Animal Confinement Facilities Plan and the Dairy Feedlot Climate Action Plan. Last year, well, in 2017, your board adopted the Animal Confinement Facilities Plan and the Dairy Cap, and it was sued, And we went into an agreement, and this is the result of that stipulated settlement agreement. The county committed to certain things, and this is one of those. So your board's already really looked at this in the past when it approved the settlement. So we're just following through on the procedure to implement. So the general plan amendment that's before you today amends the 2017 animal confinement plan, as well as the dairy and feedlot climate action plan, which regulates new dairies and dairy expansions located in Tulare County. On July 8th of this year, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended the board approve both the addendum to the final environmental impact report for the ACFP and the dairy cap, and approve the general plan amendment. The county is actually the applicant for this, and amendments to these documents apply to the unincorporated area of the county. Public hearing was noticed. Public hearing notice was published in the Sun Gazette on July 8th. So as I mentioned earlier, on August 2nd last year, a stipulated settlement agreement was entered into by the parties set forth below, which include the Sierra Club, Association of Irritated Residents, Center for Biological Diversity, and the County of Tulare. So as part of that stipulated agreement, there was going to be an amendment to the ACFP as well as the dairy cap. And essentially what we're looking at is the essential changes there are that we are allowing only one expansion, no more than one expansion every 5 years using this. This was set up as a streamline for CEQA to be able to utilize that. So what we've done is originally it didn't have a limit of how often you could do this, so this limits it only to once every 5 years. Also, we lowered the threshold. It was 25,000 if the expansioner was less than 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalents per year, it would be able to utilize the streamlined checklist. That was lowered through this agreement to 15,000 tons, so that's one of the other major parts of this component of this amendment. And then also, it changed a few of the strategies for mitigating from Category B up to Category A, and those are the substantive changes in these plans that we're talking about today. So we referred this out. The government code requires that we send out for referrals for 45 days, which we've done. Back on June 4th, we sent it out, or it expired on June 4th, sent it out in April. We also sent out tribal consultation notices based on SB 18 as well as AB 52. We didn't get any response back from any of those. We did receive comment letters from the County Environmental Health, Caltrans, and the City of Porterville responded to the notice, but their response was they have no comment, so that is their comment letter. We also received a letter from the Center of Biological Diversity responding to this, and they actually expressed appreciation for moving forward on implementing the settlement. In particular, the letter noted that this amendment before you today does mirror the settlement, so we're right on track with that. Additionally, the letter requested that the county provide a detailed update to the Board of Supervisors and the public regarding the further implementation of the settlement, which I'll do a later presentation after this. We responded to that letter, and it's in your packet as attachment number 6. And like I said, I'll present a presentation later on the implementation. So as far as environmental, this it's not expected to, the changes here are not expected to create any new impacts and not expected to exacerbate. Got a lot to get through. So the streamlining is actually, we're lowering that threshold, so it's actually more stringent on what dairies can use the streamlining, and by lowering that and really making the reduction strategies from moving from Category B to Category A, it's actually making this a stronger environmental document. Therefore, under CEQA, the county as the lead agency has prepared an addendum to 2017 final EIR for the ACFP and dairy cap. So that's what we're looking at here for the environmental summary. The general plan consistency, so these amendments are consistent with other aspects of our general plan, including the planning framework, the agriculture policies throughout there. These are mentioned, I don't need to read them, and land use policies and our environmental resource management policies. So that's really essentially the report for this part of today's presentation is for getting these general plan amendments consistent with the settlement actually adopted.
Okay, any questions or comments from board members? Any public comment, Madam Clerk?
No public comment.
Okay, seeing no public comment, I will close the public comment and bring it back to the Board of Supervisors for discussion and action. Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Townsend, a second by Supervisor Crocker. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Thank you very much. We will now move on and take up our untimed portion of the meeting today and take up item 21, which is a request from the Resource Management Agency to receive a presentation to consider the 2019 annual report of total greenhouse gas emissions from the dairies and feedlots and provide an opportunity for public comment. Mr. Washam.
Thank you. Okay, great. Yes, that's what we're here for. Again, as
thanks.
Again, going back to the stipulated settlement agreement, part of that requires the county to prepare an annual report on greenhouse gas emissions from the dairy and feedlots. This is the first annual report for that. It basically has three main criteria, what's needed in the report, and that is the total estimated greenhouse gas emissions reduction to date compared to a 1.05 million metric ton reduction that the county is committed to by 2023. So that's part of it, and we're also comparing it against the SB 1383 potential target. And then we're going to report on the state's measures and where we are with alternative manure management program, as well as provide an update on our digester project list for digesters within the county. And that includes having the name of the operator, the title of the project, the total funding, how much was awarded through grants, how much was additional, and those types of aspects, as well as the location, where the project is as far as in construction timeline, and how much greenhouse gas emission reductions over a 10-year period, and how the captured methane is being utilized. So that's all in the report. I won't necessarily go into too much detail on that as we walk through this. So the settlement requires the annual report to be presented and completed by May 1st of each year, beginning in 2020. It also requires to hold it in a public hearing, not necessarily legal sense of a public hearing, but a public meeting that allows the public to participate and comment if they choose, and for full transparency of this. The provisions will automatically, for our settlement, expire when the state implements fully the SB 1383 regulations, or by May 1st of 2025, whichever occurs first. We'll be going by the state mandates at that point, once that's finalized. Again, I mentioned previously that the county received a letter from Center for Biological Diversity expressing appreciation for us moving forward with the implementation of this and the general plan amendment, which you just adopted. And in particular, the letter noted that it's mirroring the settlement, so we're right on track with that. The letter also went on, again, to have a recommendation to have a presentation of the further implementation of this settlement, which I will address at the end of this presentation. So there have been challenges outside of the county's control regarding the timeliness. This should have been done by May 1st. However, because of the COVID, it was a challenge to get our consultants secured and online and all of that. So it did take a little bit extra time. Next year, I wouldn't anticipate that it should be done in a timely fashion. It ultimately has been delayed about 3 months total because of the COVID and all of that. Also, it's clear that we need to note that this year, this presentation of the 2000 annual report is a representation of actual dairy emissions from calendar year 2018. And that's because we work with the reports from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, which does their annual reporting, and all of their finalized comes out July 1st for the previous year. Once we get that, we actually send out July 1st. We've already sent out our annual compliance reporting forms to our dairies. Those for the next year have just gone out in the mail. And then once we get those back in about 90 days, then it takes time to process and have our consultant run the numbers, and therefore that's why there's a lag time in here. So next year should be right on time with the May 1st thing. And then just to touch again on the target is a reduction of 1.05 million metric tons in CO2 equivalents by 2023. And then when we look at in total, we look like that this is a very good achievement, that we're really well on track for meeting or exceeding those numbers. So when we first look at the three main components of this, as I briefly summarized before, is looking at total dairy GHG emissions to date. And then in the report, in section 6.4 and 7.1, satisfy this requirement as far as doing that. I'll go through a couple slides. One thing I need to note too is if you've looked at the cover of this report, next year we are going to have dairy cows from Tulare County. Those cows are obviously not from Tulare County, so we want to have local hometown cows on the cover, or a picture of the dairy, a dairy digester or some other thing. So I just want to make note of that. So when you look at the table, the progress of what we're looking at in here is in 2017, there's a 27,000 ton equivalent reduction, and that's basically off of the solar projects that have been, the last few years have been going online at many of these dairies. So that's essentially from solar and one digester. 60 solar projects and one digester account for that initial reduction. Then as we get into 2018, which this report really focuses on, you see a reduction of 50, that's increased to 50,000. It's really a total of about 91,000 that we have, but because those weren't in place operating for the whole year, we only took a partial credit for the time it was operating. So therefore, next year, we're already starting out of the gate with an additional 40,000 reduction, so we're at 90,000 starting in 2019. And then beyond that, there's some additional projects in the pipeline that I'll discuss. So that's where we're at. And again, this emissions reduction line is a linear line, so it's really, things don't work necessarily like exactly the same amount every year. We're a little bit behind on this first year. You can see in this graph, it shows, again, a linear regression line straight down, where we've reduced about 5% thus far. But in 2000, there's additional 170,000 metric tons of reduction that we already know have gone online in 2019. So that will bring this down quite a bit. It will be in 2019 report, we'll probably still be on the north side of this line, but very close to it. We'll bring it down to about 300,000. And then there's a pipeline of other projects. There's a total of 984,000 metric tons of reductions in the pipeline via projects that are already either approved or funded in some sort of development. So if we were to proceed in the next couple of years, getting all of those done, you're looking at already 985 thousand, and we're looking at 1.05 million. So we're very close. That difference is about 65,000, which is equivalent to about 3 additional dairies. Beyond that, we have the 2020 awards for grants. Again, there's 37 applications in right now requesting $47 million in CDFA grants that will be awarded, and the reviews continuing through September. The awards will be announced in October. There's an estimated 20 to 25 million available, so that's oversubscribed, so there's a pent-up demand still, but we've been very successful in getting a very large portion, if not the majority, of those grants. There's also 78 applications for alternative manure management out there for the same review period and through September. Awards will be announced in October, and that's estimated to be $6 to $12 million is available there. So again, there's significant projects still in the pipeline going forward. And like I said, if everything that's in the pipeline in the queue now, we're about three dairy digesters short, and we're already just in 2020 versus 2023. So we're very close. We're on the right track, although this first time doesn't look like it. But just know that they're already in the pipeline. And again, on the other part of this was to track it against the progress against SB 1383's goal, which goes out to 2030. And again, it's the same function here that we're looking at, that we're on the wrong side of the line at this point, but we already know that we'll quickly get in line with that. So on the second part of this was to create a list and report on the alternative manure management program. So there's additional information in the report, and then I just highlight a couple items here. Currently, there's 10 projects in our list. 2 are operational already, and were accounted for in this report. 3 are under construction. 3 have yet to apply for the building permits, but they're in their planning process, and there's a couple that are just out there. We really don't have a good status update yet. The total cost of all these projects is $8.1 million. $6 million of that was funded through CDFA rather. Sorry, that's a typo. And there's matching funds of over $2 million from other development factors. So we're looking at a reduction of over 10 years of 271 metric tons of CO2 equivalents through this as it stands to date, let alone, like I said, there's more grants coming in the fall. And then the digester list, another part of our implementation for this report, is to include an updated digester project list within the county that lists the operators' names, the title of the project, the total cost, funding, where it came from, project description, project construction, the state of that, the location, GHG reduction over 10 years, and how the captured methane is used. We have that as part, I think it's Appendix C or Exhibit C in here, that shows this report. It's about 5 pages long and very thorough, and that kind of is where we get the total numbers. So summarizing the report for the digester list is there's 54 digesters out there. 13 are operational right now, 38 are under construction, 3 have yet to come in for the building permit. So we're really moving forward with those 54. Total cost for all these projects is $233 million. There's been 78 awards, 78 million from grant funding, as well as 154 million from matching funds. 3 of the digesters, 3 out of these are actually producing electricity, generating electricity, and then 51 of the digesters are for renewable compressible natural gas. So that's the ultimate outcome of what the retention is being used for. And again, this is a 10-year reduction of 9,361,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalents. So again, that's very close to our target already. So once we get a few more of these in the pipeline, we should be able to meet this target. So this is the baseline emissions. This is how thorough that our consultant goes through. They look at everything. The baseline in 2013 was our starting point. That's what the final environmental impact report was based on. This is the same information that was there. And you can see the total emissions is 7.5 million metric tons. And then this year's, or 2018's rather, total emissions, we're at 7.18. There's a number of reasons that there is a reduction already. Some of it is due to the way things are reported from when they were reported back then. There's some minor changes. But we're taking that baseline as we're looking at mitigation measures that reduce down that 1.05 threshold. So this is how detailed and thorough it is. And that's really the gist of the annual report. Next year's annual report will be similar. Then there's an interim report which has a little bit more detail, and then the last report out of this series before 2025 will be a final report that'll have even more details in there. So we're moving forward, and I think by what's in the queue that we should be able to meet our targets reasonably well. So that kind of concludes the report on the annual report. But as far as the request for a little discussion on the implementation of the settlement agreement. So I was keying on a few components of that. One of the components was to hire a full-time, at least a full-time equivalent person as a dairy planner to monitor and enforce the ACFP plan. Sandy Roper was hired. I don't know if Sandy here? Sandy's here. He's our dairy guy. He was hired last December to help us out with this, and there's a number of tasks that he's already done, including working on this. One of the tasks for that planner was to create an ACFP list, and that list was completed in May of this year. And this is an ongoing maintaining activity, but we had to create that first list. Also, tracking existing dairies compliance. We send out annual compliance report forms, which is what I just mentioned, that goes out. We've just sent them out again for 2019 based on 2019 data. That gives us information on the herd sizes, the types of cows they have, because they do have different emissions. Then also, it also has them to be able to provide what type of alternative management practices they have for greenhouse gas reductions, if there's a digester, if there's a dry scraping facility, if there's whatever those things may be, if they have alternative feed or whatever that is, that's reporting back to us, and that helps us with gathering these annual reports. Again, the other task is the ongoing annual tracking of estimated GHG reduction, which is included as part of this report. Site inspections, the county's committed to a minimum of 15% of the dairies being inspected annually. This is another task that Sandy's going to be getting his rubber boots on and going out to. We're not counting cows specifically, but we're going out there to make sure that they're in compliance with permitting and all of those mitigation measures, make sure that things are operating the way they're supposed to. So he's going to be starting that in a very short order from here to the rest of the year, now that we've gotten past getting this adopted, getting the report out, and now he'll be going on to inspections. And we'll start inspections with those dairies that might not have gotten their annual reports in on it first. We'll start with those dairies to try to, so we refine the list a little bit better. Also, this is a code enforcement actions. This is an ongoing task as well to submit, if they're not submitting the annual compliance reports, and if they're operating outside of their permits with the Air District or the Water Board, then we're looking at those and doing that. Now, that's ongoing. We don't have any issues currently, but that's part of this as part of our inspections and monitoring. And again, on an annual basis, that we would be at this time when we come forward with this annual, if there were code enforcements, that we would include that in this presentation, any types of actions that were done or done the prior year. And again, the annual report. We've, another part of this was creating a web page to allow easy access and transparency for people to be able to access information. So we have a web page that's linked directly on the RMA site for this to be able to look at the annual updates are up there as well. Then there's the actual ACFP, the dairy plan, the environmental documents, all of those types of things are all up there for public review on site, and that's already up and been live for quite a few months. We've just taken action to adopt the amendments that were required. And then we also have a dairy mitigation education program that to work with the industry to be able to get out information regarding what's available as far as mitigation measures, what funding is out there, those types of things. That has been slightly interrupted. We were planning to go to the sustainability conference back in, I think it was March, and it got canceled. We got the shutdown a week or so before that. So that's been postponed, and we were planning to have some in-house meetings with open for the dairy industry. Those have had to be postponed as well because of this. However, staff has continued to meet with one-on-one and via phone calls to dairy owners, to the agents of the dairies that really are the ones that, for the most part, fill out these forms. So we've had that communication to keep them up to date on what's required as far as their reporting and all of that. So that's still going on. Once the COVID restrictions are lowered, then we'll reach out with a little bit more of that public education as far as that and opportunities. So that summarizes what the implementation is. Back to the annual report, that since there's no physical change, this is only informational gathering, that this is exempt from CEQA, so it's based on a common sense exemption, and a notice of exemption has been prepared, will be filed automatically after this hearing. And this was published, this opportunity for public to review this. Again, it's online, as well as it was published in the newspaper as well. So that concludes staff report.
You know, I'm actually kind of glad, Mike, that you concluded the presentation with a picture of stainless steel pipes. It's a much cleaner way to present this greenhouse gas reduction presentation. I just want to say thank you for a great presentation here to the board. I know that this is a small piece of the ongoing regulation that the dairy industry faces. I remember 20 years ago, there was over 400 dairies in Tulare County, and today there's 296. Now, some of the herds have grown in size. There's also been a transition of animals leaving Tulare County and going to other states. There has been a change from Holsteins to Jerseys, which are smaller animals and hopefully emit less gas. But I do have to compliment the dairy industry in continuing with innovation and taking advantage of different grant opportunities to help reduce their carbon footprint. I think they've done a fantastic job in a very short period of time, realizing the environmental impact they have on air quality and reducing that. They have grabbed onto these opportunities and have produced benefits to other companies, utilities that are able to provide renewable natural gas now from sources that they were unable to do so before because of what dairies have done. So compliments to RMA for the implementation of this program, compliment to dairies for taking this regulation in stride, implementing it, and actually reducing their impact to the total population's benefit. In many of these cases, the implementation of these projects has become a financial gain for dairymen during very depressed milk price scenarios, and I think that's a great thing. So there's a lot of win-win. Cleaner technology and cleaner dairies will result in a better future for dairies into the future, and I know that in Tulare County, that literally is our bread and butter, and the dairy industry has been such a critical part of our community, and with the implementation and grabbing onto the implementation of these technologies, it's going to stay that way. So great presentation. Appreciate all your efforts.
If I may, before any other comments or questions, I just wanted to, I introduced Sandy as our planner for the dairies. Also, Jason Garcia Lebu, he is really our chief planner for dairy implementation, as well as John Castleberry is our air quality consultant. So if you have any technical questions, he's the guy, he's here, he's available to answer any questions, or if you have specific questions, our team can certainly answer them.
Okay, I have a request from Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't echo all the comments that you've made, but I couldn't agree more as far as with our chairman, as far as the great strides that staff has made, as well as the dairy industry and our dairy men and women have done to make this happen. I do appreciate a couple of points that you noted that I just think should be highlighted even more, is that one, that the 2019 report is based on 2018 data. And I think why that's important is that it's a year and a half later, over a year and a half later, and based on the data that's already there, that we're more than likely even closer to the goal. So the 5% is a year and a half old. And I also appreciate that, pointing out all the projects that are in the queue that are going to get us there. So it's really just completing what's already there, and we know that some projects already have been completed that will be noticed in next year's report. One thing that was in the report that I would like to see in future reports is that there were emissions that were noted based on farm operations, specifically looking at utility costs, so pumping costs or pumping emissions, as well as equipment emissions, so from tractors and other type of equipment, and even the emissions created from soils. And so if we're going to take those steps to calculate and to claim what is being emitted based on the production of the food to feed these animals, I think we should also take that next step to calculate the emissions and the CO2 reductions based on growing the feed. We know that all the silage, the corn, the sorghum, the whatever else, alfalfa and other things are taking in carbon dioxide. And so if they're taking in, there's going to be some type of reduction there. This is something that I've advocated for and discussed at the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Board from a more specifically from a permanent crop standpoint, and how the permanent crops in agriculture, we know that if there's carbon sequestration happening in our forests based on what's being grown, that we're going to be having a similar type of carbon sequestration with agriculture. But the problem is we're not quantifying that, and agriculture is not getting any credit for that. And I think that it's important that there is, and granted with row crops it's probably not quite as much as what permanent crops would be seeing, but I think that it's still something to note that it's not all emissions creation, where actually there is going to be some type of reduction in emissions. We just need to quantify that and share that story. So that would be my ask. I'm not exactly sure if that would require for the past item to have something formal as far as an amendment to the agreement, or if we could just add a line item in the table based on that. I just think it's important to share that story if we can get that information and start sharing it.
I appreciate that. I've already had discussions with the consultant about revising his scope for next year to include this. This isn't meant to be a one and done. Again, 2018 is a lot different than it was in 2013. The settlement allows for, on our interim report, to say, hey, look at what are other things we need to be looking at. This is certainly a very valiant point relevant to this matter, and we can easily include that. One of the things we've looked at is even thermal solar for hot water heating. I didn't mention it in here, but it's within the report. So these are the things that need to be.
Fairly small, isn't it?
It's 2 tons, so it's 2 tons. It's 2 tons.
When we have over 1 million to reduce. It is something, yes, but
So I don't think there needs to be anything to add to this report. There doesn't need to be anything formally. We've got what we need to report, and if we add some additional information, I think additional information is always helpful.
I think that would be good, not only for the industry, but I think just for the general public to understand that it's not all emissions creations, that there's actual reductions based on just the nature of growing food. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Townsend.
Yeah, Mike, just a quick question. The solar installations that count, are they only installed on dairy sites, or can you, if the dairy owners have solar installation off-site, is that also correct?
Well, it would be in conjunction with the dairy operations. So I would think most of these sites are on some of the dairy land somewhere. I know a few businesses where we have an off-site, and then it's very few, but no, if it's associated with the dairy, and all the permits that we've been issuing have been associated with dairy, so it would be counted as part of that.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, any additional questions from board members? All right, any public comment, Madam Clerk? Okay, seeing no public comment, we will now bring it back to the board for direction and action. All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Crocker, a second by Supervisor Townsend. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Thank you for that presentation, Mike. And now on to an even more exciting presentation. Let's talk about manure and more about fire and fire suppression. Chief, I'd like to call you forward for item 22, which is a presentation by the Tulare County Fire Department regarding a department overview.
Don't get me wrong, there may be a little manure involved with this. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hang on. All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Mr. CAO, Jennifer, Melinda, Matt. Always good to see you. The busy time of year, we've got numerous fires popping up in Northern California. Our biggest incident right now is a mineral fire west here, kind of Priest Valley area, southwest of Coalinga. Just want to say, my parents always taught me to always say thank you for people that have done well for you. And I appreciate your efforts, the efforts of the previous boards to put public safety in Tulare County such a high priority in this facility. Like a kid in a candy shop. I mean, I went home and filled up my ice chest last night, and I didn't really need to. But stop by Station 1, what a great facility. That's going to be such a great community asset for so many years to come. Hopefully everybody got a cookie. Those are great cookies. I did happen to take one home, just a quick joke before we get into the presentation. Take this cookie home, there's a crack in it. And one of my above average children says, hey, Dad, that cookie, it's got a crack in it, it's wrecked. It goes, just like when you used to be an engineer. And I thought, oh my God, you can remember 1997, but you can't remember to take out the trash? Yeah, they just don't remember the right things. Oh, so very funny on the Norman kids. They take after their mother. So if we could start the presentation, Melinda. Thank God they take after their mother. I'm sorry. Awkward silence? Okay. Okay, thank you. Normally you get nervous around these things, but I'm just happy to have a couple of minutes without a mask. Just to like to provide an annual update. I have Chief Marcus and Chief McLaughlin here to touch on their specific divisions, so you don't have to hear me drone on forever. I'd like to cover some of the things that we've accomplished, some of the history, some of where we've come from within an appropriate amount of time, and kind of show everybody where we're going and what's been going on with the department. Foundation of the department. In 2016, we redid our mission statement to kind of capture what we do in the Tulare County Fire Department. Put a working group together, talked about mission, vision, and values. As you go through what you do as a department. Yes, we fight fire, we save lives, we provide quality pre-hospital care and emergency services. But as you incorporate your core values into that, integrity, respect, loyalty, teamwork, and compassion. As we have new employees that enter the organization, we always want to say, okay, when in doubt, when you have that non-strategy and tactics decision, when you have that ethical, moral decision, what do you go to? You go back to your core values. You don't go with any of those 5 things, and you're going to be in good shape as far as you processing information and doing the right thing. Here's our org chart. We are basically divided up into 4 different divisions. Operations, which covers about 90% of what we do and drastically about 90% of our budget. Our professional, and that's led by Division Chief Jeff McLaughlin. Our professional standards, which covers internal affairs investigations, prevention, investigation, fireworks enforcement, and our dispatch center, that's covered by Chief Marquez. And our training division, entry-level training, ongoing training, extra help training to keep us within compliance of state and federal mandates, and that's governed by Jeff Newton. And then our new ASO, Nancy Renovato, we couldn't do any of this without her. She controls our purse strings, she controls our finances, and she does a tremendous job for our department. You can ask questions anytime during this. I'll try and run through it, and then you can ask as we go, or we can take some at the end. A brief history of the department. The Board of Supervisors decided to form their own fire department in '05, and it went through an arduous process of how we worked through that. And just the having a fire department that you have local control over, and having members of the community, and CAL FIRE is a great organization, did a great job, but being able to have that responsiveness and have the day-to-day conversation with everybody. It's you go out to these communities, and I may go out to Allensworth, and the superintendent out there who knows Mr. Vanderpool used to be our vice principal in Exeter, and it's just, this is such a small area, and it's so good to have the community connections and not live in Northern California and work in Tulare County. We started as the first day, July 1 of '07. A lot of the positive things that happened within those first 3 to 5 years. We reopened the Doyle Colony Fire Station, the Lemon Clove Station. Both were previously closed. The Dinuba Station 3, south of Dinuba, was open, and then the Badger Station in 2010. As we begin to evolve, begin to become a bigger all-hazard fire department, in 2015 we created a 3rd battalion. That way we didn't have the battalion chief coming from Doyle Colony all the way out to Allensworth or Alpaugh. So we had a more manageable span of control to keep our employees safe. In January 2016, we had a monumentous accomplishment to have our first 2.0 staff station. And 2.0 staffing, as we'll get into the presentation, it's great. You see municipal fire departments that have 3, 4, and 5 personnel, and obviously LA City has a much, much different tax base than Tulare County, and we do use our resources wisely. But just over the last several years, the last 15, 20 years, we've had a decline in the culture of the volunteer firefighter. And that is basically, we have a window of a 2 to 3 year employee that wants to become a full-time firefighter. You don't have the 30 to 40 year employee that wants to serve the community as well. It's just a different mindset and a different culture. September 17th, another huge accomplishment, moving into our headquarters from Farmersville to the Visalia Signa building, putting public safety all under one roof. It helps us to have great conversations for large-scale incidents. It helps us with day-to-day planning. It's just such a great thing. Sometimes it's easier to run across the hall and talk to Sheriff Boudreaux than it is to talk to a colleague at the Pixley substation. It's just geographic presence. We talk a lot more to our neighbors than we do to perhaps other people we should talk to. In 17, we started with the 2.0 staffing at 25 in Tulare, also Station 8 in Ivanhoe. In combating the tree mortality issue, we started our fuels crew in 2018, and based on some of the Sacramento costs, we were able to really cut those costs as far as what we were trying to do and the amount of trees we were trying to fall. In 2018, we hired our 3rd Division Chief to run our training division. The department was originally started with 3 division chiefs. We scaled some of that back to put more battalion chiefs back in the field in 2015, and having that positioning in, again, helped with our span and control, gave us a very good direct report so we could keep current on all our training. In 2019, based on productivity and demand, where we increased our field crew staffing. Again, trying to combat, trying to be a responsive, community-oriented person. With the 2019, we, due to an underfill, which I'll talk about a little bit later, we were able to overstaff and staff Goshen and Cutler Rossi with too low staffing. Here's our station staffing locations. A lot of geographic area to cover as we have. The big star is our latest asset, Station 1, right there in the middle. Our two staff stations at this point are Ivanhoe, Terabella, Tulare, and then new Station 1. We do have two other stations, as talked about in the previous slide. With the recruitment and hiring, our previous entry-level position when we started the department was a lieutenant. So basically, we're taking beyond extra help firefighter, we're having a person come in as a lieutenant, as a first-line supervisor to supervise extra help. With the advent of the engineer position, we're able to give some time driving, some time in a non-incident commander role, which really has helped the organization as far as development of employees.
Chief, just on that point, you stated on the previous slide that Goshen and Cutler Rossi had 2.0, and so do they or do they not have 2.0?
Do have it at this time.
But it's with an engineer?
Those were allocated lieutenant's positions. When we promote those up towards the end of the year, those will go back to 1.0 staff stations. So those are
Oh, so it's a temporary 2.0.
It's a temporary training tool to make sure that we can get these people. And the problems we were having, to more deeply address your question, is lieutenant is a big skill set for an entry-level position, and we were not getting a quality candidate. They were not passing background. If we got them into the entry level, we were spending a lot of time with potential disciplinary behavioral issues. They just weren't ready yet. It's so key to have those entry-level engineer positions. So, successes and forward progress. Some of the little things, and you saw them out at Station 1, some of our development, before I go on, is our Honor Guard program. Where we were at the beginning in '07 to where our Honor Guard is now with the training and the leadership and having that at special events, at fire service funerals, at parades. Having that component of a truly professional fire department has been huge for us. And again, little things, the changing of the patch, having the ownership, and a patch and a badge, or you talk to any firefighter out there, and they may not argue about salaries, but they will sure argue about the color of an engine. So patches, badges, there's such huge cultural developments in the fire service. Again, new headquarters admin facility, moving out of Farmersville into the Cigna building. Fire Station 1, can't talk about that enough. And that was not good marketing. We had 9 calls out of that the first shift. It was brilliant placement on behalf of the board and the CAO. The dispatch co-location, working forward with that in close proximity again. Sheriff Boudreau has a dispatch center in his basement. We have ours out at Mooney's Grove. Getting those in the same location, but not in the same room, and being able to fulfill each other's missions, that'll work so well for us. Having Swiftwater rescue teams, working in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department as well as our own Swiftwater rescue teams. We've got some major target hazards as we see at the stairs every year, as we see at the park every year, as we have some major water hazards. And it's not so much that we have as far as the residents as it is the folks from Southern California that just don't know what the conditions are in the spring. Another extrication equipment. We were able to do some grant writing to change from gas to electric extrication equipment. The old gas was very noisy, very confusing on scene. Going to the e-hydraulic tools has been a huge advancement for us. And again, we talked about the increased staffing. Positive cultural changes within the department, local labor market. Going out to the career days at Rossi and Woodlake and Exeter and talking to the kids and realizing that, hey, you do your homework, you go to school, you get a little bit of education, you go to the COS Porterville Fire Academy, we can employ you in Tulare County. You can have a long, fulfilling career with Tulare County. Our extra help development is so important with getting things attached to our local labor market, and I think we've done a really good job of that in the last few years. Our Type 3 incident management team, you get pressed into action a lot of times on necessity, based on necessity. We had the Pier Fire, we had the Cedar Fire, we had the flooding incident, and the Cedar and the Pier Fire not our jurisdiction, but we do have structural protection responsibilities in the FRA and the SRA areas. But having the flood incident, it's for the first 4 hours of that incident when we had a breach in one of the walls, we had some serious life safety issues. And having the command structure and being able to have a fully contained incident, we've taken some great steps to make sure that we're up to par in that particular area. And it's always good that our master mutual aid and automatic aid system works so well in the county and the state. Innovation apparatus. Apparatus are very expensive. We need apparatus. But having an HHSA vehicle, the refurbed command vehicle, we basically took a gift from HHSA, and I think Mr. Brett knows what that looked like before we got it. It was a little unsightly, and I had a lot of doubts talking to Chief McLaughlin about it, but getting that rig into shape to where we can use it as an asset is great. And we already have always upgraded our fleet and apparatus. Any questions on anything? You guys staying awake? Talk faster? Okay. Challenges. This one I'll be really brief on. And a couple of these go in conjunction with each other. Staffing and extra help, bullet 1 and bullet 4. The extra help recruitment has been down, as you can see our graph on the bottom. We don't have the high volume of people that are wanting to be extra help firefighters as they were in the 80s and 90s. With that, with the 2.0 staffing model, trying to build that up to where we can augment our responses on particular incidents. And day-to-day medicals, always good to have 2 hands, more hands are better, but having control over things during this particular process and having a span of control where we can safely supervise people. Apparatus replacement, fire stations and fire station apparatus dimensions, 2, 3, and bullet number 6 all go hand in hand together. I looked at the Sheriff's Department presentation on body cameras, very effective. And I have 6 or 7, I have 6 1987 Beck fire apparatus. The number 1 song in 1987 was Tiffany, I Think We're Alone Now. I was thinking about playing that to kind of get some perspective. So come on, no laugh on that one. But it was not.
Chief, I was 3. It's kind of hard for me to laugh at that one, right?
I know, Gilligan's Island, I know, we'll have age-appropriate responses. And it's ironic that the 1987 Becks are non-computer rigs, those things are still bulletproof. Yeah. We're still using those in day-to-day and reserve operations. And as we move forward with ladder trucks and Type 1 engines, we've got a great asset in Station 1, but we have some facilities we're gonna have to modify garages because the apparatus of 1940 and 1950 were designed for small fires, and they were not designed for all-risk fire departments. So catching up on some of the, and I understand the cost of these things grows exponentially, and even with the steel tariffs, they've gone up 20% over the last 3 years. So this is a very big elephant to bite. So, and we will get there, and we'll have some long-term planning, but it is one of those things that is gonna continue to escalate with the expenses. Our extra help hiring, there's a quick graph for 2018, 48 to start, we have 18 in the field. Various reasons, we have people lose interest, we have no-shows, we have withdrawal. We had a smaller percentage than what I thought with background in the failed drug. We only lost 8 of those, and then the physical, and then the failed minimum requirements. So it's very, very challenging. We got 37% of those applicants, and the ones we have are very good. And they do a good job, and they meet all the state and minimum mandated requirements, but it is arduous to get to that process.
Can I just add something really quick?
Oh,
so I just want to give kudos to our fire department. I know that my younger brother actually was an extra help firefighter for about 2-3 years before he went on to do corrections, but he would continuously tell me about the work ethic, about the brotherhood, about just coming together and not necessarily seeing him as another, or as someone that comes in and helps, but actually as part of the team. And so it's just great to know that there's that camaraderie, there's that support for all the men and women that work within the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It is a very inclusive group. I'm so proud to be part of this industry. Major incidents, and I won't go into them verbatim. Chief Garcia, prior to me, he had no big incidents. I called him at the end of 2017 and said, what are you doing? Because I'm doing it absolutely wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
It just seemed like 16 and 17, I was so happy to see 2018 come around. Just the local incidents, the Cedar Fire, the Pier Fire, the tragic campfire out of county, 153,000 acres, and then a Utah battalion chief was killed with one of our strike teams by a falling tree. We've had so many of those, and the TC designates our local fires. We did also have the Schaefer Fire that was local, and then the Tubbs Fire. We just, for about a 4 or 5 year span, up and including the campfire, we just had some tremendous incidents throughout the state. More locally, in 2019, the Strathmore flooding, and I talk about partnerships in this. Having the RMA staff, having Tony Bolin, having Reed Schenke's folks working in concert with us, it is a great thing. It's we can get things and we can get equipment out there in a very rapid fashion. It's a very good agency. I'm so proud to be part of this. The library incident was one of the toughest hits that I've ever experienced in my career. And Chief Lapierre and his folks are still having to deal with a lot of incidents, a lot of issues with that incident, and just being there for a good neighbor as they would be there for us to try and help people recover and do the best job we can by ourselves. And then COVID, who saw that coming? Just from a response perspective, it's been very arduous, making sure that all our personnel are safe, making sure they have proper PPE, making sure they're utilizing proper PPE as they go to incidents to reduce our exposures. We really pride ourselves, again, on being inclusive and being in that community. And Zoom meetings, oh my goodness. I've never looked more forward to a Pixley Town Council meeting than I have since I've had a Zoom meeting. It's just getting out into the community is where our department shines. It's getting out there and spreading the word within the community and just being there for the community. And I think once we get back on track and hopefully get through our COVID, which is very serious, get through that soon, and we can get back to normal business, to engaging our community. This time I'd like to introduce Chief McLaughlin, and it'll be much more exciting than I am. He'll talk about the Operations Division of the Fire Department.
Well, good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeff McLaughlin, Division Chief of Operations. Pretty long title, but what does that mean? Basically, I supervise the day-to-day operations of the folks in charge of emergency response, emergency preparedness. And it's a pretty big task. It's 90% of what we do. I couldn't do it without the 9 battalion chiefs that I supervise, as well as the command staff. We utilize a very team approach to solving operational issues and addressing issues, and very thankful for that. Okay, getting into it. So the operational staffing is on the screen there, but it's roughly 270 folks between full-time, extra help, and seasonal firefighters. We're focused on the preservation of life, fire suppression, emergency medical services, hazardous materials response, day-to-day emergencies such as vehicle accidents, technical rescues, disaster and emergency planning, as well as hazard mitigation and operational readiness, and then grant writing. I'll get into 2 different sections of grant writing. So I'm responsible for the operational grants as well as the fuel reduction and tree mortality grants, which I'll get to later. But operationally, about $500,000 worth of grants in the last few years. Those are mostly in areas of Office of Traffic Safety, Homeland Security, Title III funds, as well as USDA money. Office of Traffic Safety and Homeland Security have been mainly focused on extrication equipment, the jaws of life, transitioning from Hearst hydraulic gas-powered equipment to hydraulics, which would be battery-powered. We believe that's going to save us anywhere from 6 to 11 minutes on the setup time once we arrive at scene. So, adding a few minutes to that golden hour of somebody's life when they're disentangled or entrapped is huge. Moving forward, we're roughly halfway through the fleet on that, so we're about 14 pieces in. We need about 15 to go or so. Those are roughly $40,000 a set. And we've been able to do all 13 sets on grant funds so far. And we just got notice last week that we're going to be receiving another one, 4 or 5 from the Office of Traffic Safety. Overall, we're up 17.25% on call volume, as you can see, since 2016. Majority of those increases are emergency medical services, roughly 3,000 calls. So we're running about 8 more calls this year than we did in previous years, a day. And that's due to the recommitment of the prioritization of emergency medical services. So we have priority 1, 2, and 3 medical aids. Priority 1 being the highest, priority 3 being the lowest. And in the past, we were going to different priorities of medical aids in different geographical locations based off of distance to hospital or distance to an ambulance or distance to one of our fire stations. We now go to all priority 3 medical aids in all locations. Just from a risk management standpoint, we were noticing that quite a few priority 3 medical aids were becoming priority 2 medical aids with additional information received either from the patient or a bystander that arrived on scene. So escalating the priority of the medical aid rather than trying to increase or escalate our response being several minutes behind with new additional information, we decided that we were going to de-escalate the situation by responding to and then de-escalating from that point forward. But all calls for all types are up, including fires. Roughly 300 more fires a year this year than last year, which is roughly 1 a day. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when a fire takes anywhere between an hour and a half and 5 hours, that's a significant workload increase. Some operational successes moving forward, I guess, from 5 years to today that I did want to talk about. I know we have a lot of, I guess, monumental achievements that we've done. But more recently, so I guess some of the smaller achievements in more agencies would be monumental. And so I just wanted to describe a few of those. In 2007, when I was hired as a captain, I got to the Goshen Fire Station. First of all, I had to find it, because I wasn't from here like a lot of us were. And they gave me a trifold map, like a TCAG map. I said, all right, this is, you're going to get dispatched, and this is how you're going to respond. All right, we could do that. And I would get dispatched, pull out the map, find out where I was going, and just hope that they wouldn't re-dispatch me to a different location where I'd have to pull over and re-look at the map, right? Well, as of about 4 years ago, each station, and most apparatus, almost all apparatus, but each station has an iPad. And on that iPad, as soon as they get dispatched, they get an app notification. They'll then press the app. Not only will it give them turn-by-turn verbal or visual directions, but it gives them all the CAD information. So who else is responding with you, whether units, where those units at geographically on the map, call type nature. So in the past, we would get, you're going to respond to this address for difficulty breathing, and that's pretty much all the information you'd get. They can now pull it up and say, okay, it's difficulty breathing for a 35-year-old female. She's in the front living room, and there's a gate code of this, or there's a key under the mat, or it's post-surgical complications due to surgery. So pretty large improvement operationally, obviously, especially if you're redirected to another incident. Everything's at the touch of your finger. So while those are really large operational improvements, they've been, I guess, shadowed by some, I think, monumental improvements. The chief briefly touched about the swift water. So 5 years ago, we had no capability to engage in a swift water rescue and or any type of standing water rescue, like a lake. Now we have 2 certified FEMA Type 3 swift water teams, so it's a nationally recognized team, technically. And then I think the thing I'm most proud of operationally moving forward is our evacuation planning, our preparedness, and our long-term strategic approach to that. And I think I'll get into that a little bit later in the tree mortality stuff, but we view that as kind of like a wheel with spokes, having multiple spokes to make that a seamless process. Not to say the process wasn't good before, but I think it's extremely efficient now. So now we have pre-identified evacuation zones that are identified in an ArcGIS layer, so it's right handy or handy to the incident commander. I'd like to thank IT and OES for working on that with us. In the past, incident commander would have to pick up the radio and say, I'd like to evacuate this area from this road to this road to this road. And now they would just have to pick up the radio and say, I'd like to evacuate this zone, which has a predetermined script with a predetermined direction, with a predetermined options for locations for sheltering folks, and all that's predetermined, as well as the fuels work we've done in those corridors and the notification to the community about the alert TC process. So I'm very, very proud of that moving forward. That was obviously recognized by CSAC in 2017 with award, and it's been recognized nationally through some fire departments in Colorado as well as Montana. We've had some contact there. So that's the only operational updates I have, unless I have any questions on that. Thank you.
Great job, Chief. Thanks.
So good morning, Pete Marquez, Division Chief Professional Standards Unit.
As you can see on the slide, the staffing for the professional standard units, the two admin captains are our investigators to go out and investigate fires. The one admin battalion chief is our deputy fire marshal, who oversees the plan review process that we do to ensure that everybody's in compliance with various codes. Our 4 inspectors are the 4 people that go out and do the inspections and do all the work. We have an office assistant for that section, and then one emergency dispatch supervisor, which supervises 9 dispatchers within what we call FireCom. Our focus in professional standards, a few things: public education and outreach. It's been kind of challenging lately because usually the people in the fire stations, on the fire engines, staff are out there interacting with the public, but because of COVID, it's been difficult to do that. But I think with social media, we've kind of kept up with things. People are still looking at our Facebook and Twitter accounts, so we're still able to get those messages out. Particularly around the 4th of July, we were able to get the fireworks safety messages out. A couple examples of things we would do prior to COVID was the Downtown Heroes event and the Food Trucks and Fire Trucks event, which were both very successful. Moving down the line, fireworks safety, we really put that out on social media this year. Even going beyond that, we partnered up with the DA's office, their investigators. We're able to, for about 5 days, do some undercover buys of people that were selling illegal fireworks online. That turned out to be pretty successful. I believe we had a total of about 15,000 pounds we confiscated. And more so than the amount of product that we got was the message that was getting out there that if you're going to do this illegally online, it's being watched and you could get caught. So the fine was $1,000 for the person selling them, and in 2 cases, there was going to be misdemeanor charges filed against them too. So building inspections, as I mentioned earlier, our fire inspectors are responsible for that. Later on this year, we'll be coming out with a report to the board of all the mandated state inspections, where we are with that. Hazard abatement. As you know, last year, the board amended the hazard abatement ordinance, and it's proved to be very effective in that I don't think we've had, I know we haven't had to order one abatement this year. And the reason I think that's important to know is because now that we're using administrative citations, the people that are getting those notices in the past were ignoring them, and now they're getting these administrative citations for $100 to start with, and it tells them it can go up to $500. And it's catching their attention. And we, to this year, to date, for this season, and it's not over yet, we have 100% compliance and haven't had to diss one property. So I think that was a good move on the board's part. Another thing that professional standards is required or responsible for is employee accountability. So in 2018 and 19, we had about an average of 14 employee investigations for things employees were accused of doing. It could have been anywhere operationally from wrecking an engine, either small scale or large scale, or behavioral things, maybe a complaint they had from the public. But in those 2 years, we had 14 investigations each year. This year to date, we're at 50%. So I think that the program is making our employees know that they're going to be held accountable if they do something. So we're at 50%, and of those 7 investigations we've had to this day, about 80% are unfounded. So what that tells the chief is that even though we're looking into these, they're unfounded and they're dismissed, so our employees are doing things. They may be doing something what's perceived as wrong, but it's consistent with county policy or department policy. So they're doing their job. So that's just showing us that we're getting better in that area. And the ones we have had this year are for operational things such as minor scratches or dings or small accidents with engines. They're not really for bad behavior, either on duty or off duty. And the last thing that I'll talk about is pre-employment backgrounds. So about a year and a half ago, we started using a program called Guardian Alliance Technologies. It's a cloud-based software that where in the past I would meet with an applicant, we'd go through the personal history questionnaire, and then I'd send out letters to all their references, and this would take about 8 weeks to do a good employee background. With Guardian Alliance Technologies, everything's done by email. It's cloud-based. They can upload documents. It's sped the process up to maybe 10 days to 2 weeks I can get a background done. Unfortunately, there are several, I wouldn't say several, there's a few
that we reject, but the ones we are hiring after extensive backgrounds, we're not having any problems with them. In fact, the biggest problem we have is trying to keep them because a few of them go to other departments after they get some experience. But, you know, for the time they're here, we're really getting quality employees. So that is professional standards, and unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions? All right, great job, Chief.
Training, I'm pinch hitting for Jeff Smith. He's at Shaver Lake, so I'm still mad with his family. Training is very important. It's the lifeblood of what we do. One thing that we've instituted since in recent history over the last 4 to 5 years is as people are coming into the organization, we do what's called a family night. We'll have get together at Elks Lodge, various venues, and have the family, meet the family, let them know what their family member's getting into, let them know the commitment it takes to be a firefighter, let them know the commitment to the organization, let them know that the organization is here for you, the department is here for you, but we're going to require all this out of your loved one over the next 12 weeks going through rookie school. So don't take it personally when you hear those stories about our personnel. So a very, very effective tool. It's really helped us, and I think our last few graduations prior to COVID, you've been able to see the fruits of those labors, and what a great group of people we're getting. Our training division staffed by Chief Smith, 2 admin captains, and office assistant 3. Basically, the focus on competency, entry-level employees, and make sure we're complying with national standards, federal and state regulations. DICO, making sure that everybody's immunizations are up, body substance isolation. This was so important to make sure that we had this prior to COVID. I think some of the strides and some of the hard work that Jeff, and Pete have done have kept our people safe. We've had a few exposures, but no positive cases, and we are in the thick of running a lot of calls with infected patients. And developmental training opportunities, so we can make sure we're concentrating on our people that are working here full-time, to where we can invest in those people and help them achieve their career goals. How it boils down to Joe Q taxpayer, everything's rated by ISO, the Insurance Service Offices. So when we have training guidelines and accomplishments, everything's done to a credential tracking system through the ISO service. ISO is a system that goes from 1 to 10 based on your location to a fire station, geography, water sources, training, and staffing of your fire department. The lower the number, low numbers are good, high numbers bad. So we've created a return to work policy to make sure that we're keeping our people safe as they come in. I think networking with human resources, county council, helping us make sure that we're following correct procedures, state and national standards. Just some of the PACE 2 qualifications for our drivers instructors, and then our chief officer courses at TCFD headquarters. Hosting some of these classes, a lot of these are acronyms, and I try not to, you can ask me any acronym and I'll make sure I can get it to you. But with the people that we have now, with the instructor-based teaching that we have, we're bringing some courses in here to generate revenue, bless you.
Thank you.
To generate revenue for the fire department, to generate revenue for the county, so we can not only keep our people safe, but also hopefully defray some of the costs of training. Again, training courses hosted. Basically, a lot of this was our emergency management team training, driver operator, some of our swift water, as well as wildland preparedness stuff, and then the chief officer series. Some of the internal classes, day-to-day, the CPR, the first aid, the first due command basics. This is something as we evolve and we expand as a department to, again, become more of a community steward and provide outreach training, not to get crossed up with private EMS, but provide community outreach for CPR, first aid, and some of those things to where we can be a more valuable community asset. Any questions on training? I can tell we're getting to that point. We've got a few more slides and then we'll go on. I'll turn it back over to Jeff and tree mortality.
All right. So the tree mortality task force is comprised of roughly 20 local government employees, as well as some community members with RMA, CAO, staff, CAL FIRE, U.S. Forest Service, GSA, Tulare County RCD, obviously County Fire, and then several community groups. If you look at our completed projects on the screen there, we've got the Posey project we completed. That project went roughly from the transfer station up to Sugarloaf. The Parker Pass project, which went from Mountain Road 50, Dead Mule Saddle, up to the Western Divide Highway, and I'd say there's roughly 5,000 trees that were taken off that project at one point. Pierce Valley project, Pierce Valley drives off of Isham, and it runs basically from mid-slope on Pierce Valley all the way up to the OHV trailhead. It is less than a mile-long road that we worked on, and we took about 1,200 trees off of a mile, so it was about 90% mortality on that road. The Ponderosa project, which went from termination of Highway 190 and Western Divide all the way into the community of Ponderosa. Western Divide 2A project, which started at the end of the Ponderosa project and went south on the divide towards South Alder Creek. Balch Park, which is actually our first project, I think back in 2016, it might have been 2017. We cleared roughly 400 trees off the Balch Park Road up to Balch Park. South Fork project, which is completed today, this afternoon, should be completed about 4 o'clock today. Really excited about that. And that reduced about 40 feet of fuel on either side of South Fork Drive from the Grouse Valley turnoff into Blossom Drive. That's actually, the two pictures on the slide are actually the South Fork project, the before and after. If you look in the picture with the crew working, you can see the dense vegetation in front of them compared to the no vegetation behind them. There's a small picture there. They've done a tremendous job. Upcoming projects, I know it says upcoming, but Silver City will be completed tomorrow. That project should be completed tomorrow. That's the removal of hazard trees around the community of Silver City. I'd like to thank the National Park Service for letting us work on some of their property and remove some of their trees that's just outside of the local property. Those have been some trees of contention for the community, and they were able to let us take those. But we're at 700 trees to date on that project, and we have about 150 more, at least we had this morning. So I'm hoping it'll be done today. If not, it'll be done by Friday, and we'll be able to build those. The Posey project, not to be confused with the Upper Posey project, will start probably the third week of August, and that will be the removal of vegetation along the road into the Posey Christian Camp as well as around the camp, securing that evacuation route for any residents or anybody that might be attending that Christian camp. The Camp Nelson project, which should start about April of next year, which is an exciting project. It's been a project that the Forest Services has been wanting to do for several years, at least 10 or so that I know of. We'll be able to work on that starting in April of next year. It's going to clear and reduce vegetation on about 525 acres of land west of Camp Nelson on the north side of 190, but the south aspect, if that makes sense, is going to kind of hook around the community there. And then one that's not listed on here that'll also be taking place next year is the Isham Valley project, which encompasses both sides of Isham Valley right around Heartland Christian Camp, and that'll be the removal of hazard trees on that project. I know the slide says roughly 10,000 trees removed, but we should be at the 11,000+ right now, as this is a month old. And to date, we have not had any major injuries. I know these ladies and gentlemen are working in the most hazardous environment that we can work in. The most serious injury has been a broken ankle to date. A lot of poison oak and a lot of other things like that. Thank God no snake bites. And then future projects, as we talk about, years down the road, we've been in discussions with the Forest Service on what we'd like to call the CDZ project, Community Defense Zone project. We've completed our portion of the I guess what we would like to see completed. We've got a map of what we'd like to see completed as well as a draft scope of work. And that would be putting a 300-foot wide shaded fuel break around all our mountain communities. Basically, if you name it, we've encompassed it on the map, and we're hoping to have future discussions on a collaborative effort with the Forest Service, especially utilizing like the Good Neighbor Authority. And I know that's just in some discussions now, but I'm really excited about that. As everybody knows, you get these large, devastating fires. There are certain times where we can make a huge impact, and there's certain time Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature is going to do. And I'm a firm believer that the only way to reduce the threat to these communities, as well as provide a safe environment for our employees to work in, is to reduce the fuel. Period. So, any questions, tree mortality related or fuels related?
Any questions, Supervisor Townsend?
Yeah, thank you for that report. The last one you were talking about, the CDZ project, you said looking at 300-foot shaded fuel breaks around all of the,
All mountain communities and on federal property.
okay. And what else has to happen before that is able to be started?
Yeah, so it's just been general discussion at this point, but they would have to give us the authority or the good neighbor authority to work on their property, complete the projects on their property to a specified scope for that project, which I think scope-wise, we could probably come to a fairly quick agreement on what that looks like, as those are pretty defined. Those are generally defined terms in the fire service, but yeah, they would have to give us the authority to work on the property, and then they would have to give us the authority to perform the CEQA on the property, or clear NEPA for us on the property.
And we wouldn't be able to use the master stewardship agreement under CAL FIRE?
I'm not sure. I heard there was only one of those in place in California, as well as a good neighbor authority. I think it's in Fresno. But I believe the Forest Service, last time I talked to the chief, was going to work on that portion for us. But
They're on it.
in terms of our portion, we've completed the map, we've completed what we want, we've completed a draft scope. We're ready to have further discussions on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Townsend will send you his address after the meeting. Supervisor Valero?
Yes, I just had a quick question on how you divvy up certain areas to focus on, because I know, like, say, northern Tulare County with the Badger area as well needing some attention. So how do you go about doing that? And yeah, just that information.
Yeah, so in 2016, I mean, this was all brand new, and we sat down as a committee and a group and decided, what will we focus on? We decided to focus on life safety, and that life safety generally was around the movement of people if we had to evacuate. And so we looked at key evacuation corridors and decided where we thought the biggest problem was in those evacuation corridors, and we focused our projects on those.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions at this point? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Is that the wrap it up look? Okay, here we go.
Hey, I didn't even look at you, Chief.
Just a couple more slides. Relationships, partnerships, everything in life is about relationships, good, bad, or indifferent. This is what it's all about. And we have some great relationships with our internal agencies. The building department, I know Dennis Lehman, back when Mike Spada was director, we created this one-stop shopping at the permit center to where you didn't have everybody, okay, I got to go to fire department here, have to go to building department here. We were able to create that one-stop shopping environment at the permit center to where we could streamline building permits and help people with their projects. The last thing you want is a government runaround when you're trying to pay the county fees. So trying to streamline that process to make sure it's as painless as it can be going through government. Very, very good development based on that relationship. HHSA, in my 6 years here, I've really gotten to know the HHSA folks through our EOC openings. And I think that was evident with Captain Bear's commitment during the DOC and the JIC when the COVID first started. And had we not had those relationships prior to, that wouldn't have been as seamless as it was. The DA, Office of OES, our brothers and sisters in tan and green, the Sheriff's Department, having those groups all on the same page, being able to call them and know them before we have a crisis, so there's not crisis communication. All the community groups and non-government stakeholders, again, like the community groups, love them now that I'm in a Zoom meeting environment. It'll be so nice to get back into a little bit of normalcy. And the arena that we operate in, local fire service agencies, I can't stress enough the relationship between the Tulare Kings County Fire Chiefs and being able to share resources, trade resources, being able to, when we have something big, we have limited resources, but we have access to resources. Likewise, when the smaller agencies have big incidents, we can help out being a larger county. And this goes with our investigator strike team, National Mutual Aid, and then starting in from the basic chiefs group with the Training Officers Association. The innovation slide, I think we've covered most of that throughout the presentation. And again, Chief McLaughlin talked about the beginning of the Thomas Brothers map and the cardboard map to where we've come through the Esri and the E911, the Foxtrot Fire app. the Guardian Technologies with our backgrounds, the change from gas to electric, as we move forward with our new CAD system, the MDTs and the engines to make sure that we have the safest, most accurate, rapid information, and just being able to go outside the box. Having a Type 3 engine, Type 3 is a medium-sized engine, Type 1 is the biggest, except in ladder truck, and then as the number gets bigger, they go smaller. But having a Type 3 in Lemon Cove and being able to plug those into some of our outlying stations, not only do they facilitate based on the dimensions of the station, they give us more diversity and versatility with an urban interface in the wildland area. The next last one, community service. Are we creating value to our community? Being part of that value of the community, that's what it's all about. We've had this opioid epidemic. We've been able to step up with Narcan. Even though we are EMT, we're not a paramedic fire department, we're able to step up and provide life-saving services. Our tree mortality crew, as Chief McLaughlin discussed, our public chipper days, being able to expand those public chipper days to where when you have these torn down, we've got our rubbish, we can give those crews to the community to be a more viable asset. Our fire camps, reaching out to fire camps, it's so great. I still see kids at St. Martha that'll come up to me and say, "Hey, Chief Norman, how are you?" I said, "Oh my goodness, who are you?" And they're somebody that we've had in fire camp when they were 7 or 8 years old, that they're a young person now, a young adult. And it's so satisfying to see some of that. Our fundraising, again, being part of the community, the Fill the Booth, the March of Dimes, the Relay for Life, getting out there and doing beyond what the average citizen would do, helping a cause, getting involved in something that's bigger than yourself. And I think just being part of that community, Battle of the Badges, I only bring that up because the sheriff still owes me a fire truck wash because he lost and he hasn't paid up yet. So, yeah, I need to get him on our aerial platform. That'll get him. And just some of the holiday outreach, making a good community that maybe that's somebody that's underserved, getting out there in a fire engine, delivering a turkey, delivering some presents. It's what it's all about. So, in conclusion, we'll answer any questions you have. This was given to us by the Bay Area Academy from our Sonoma County work on the Kincaid fire. Beautiful piece of art. We have one of the prints in our office. Feel free to stop by. We're a great agency. We're going in a good direction. For only being 13 years old, I'd say we're an advanced teenager. But all this is due to the support of the board, support of CAO, and we really appreciate that. We've hired and retained a good local labor market and great personnel, and we are continuing to grow and serve the community. So at this point, all three of us would answer any questions you have. I know it's getting really close to lunch, so talk as fast as I can.
All right, Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief, for the presentation, and Chief McLaughlin and Marquez also for participating. I mean, I think we all share a deep appreciation for what you all do and for all the rest of the staff and the volunteers. It's, I mean, we've seen it just on my short tenure, you know, some local incidents that you've highlighted today about how important it is, and just really appreciate the work that you guys do. On a couple of questions on some of the challenges that you glossed over. As far as the 2O staffing, I think I can make an assumption that if we were to have additional staffing, that they would already go to where we have temporary 2O staffing, to Goshen and Cutler or Rosie would be the two stations next for that.
Yes.
What would be the thought beyond those two? What would be the next kind of round?
What a great question. I'm glad
What would
you
be
asked
the
that.
the new temporary 2O staffing?
Beyond that, it would be Station 28 in Early Mart, so that would round out, and then the next one would be, and a lot of this is not based on call volume, it's based on second in, it's based on resources that have 2O staffing, it's more chess than it is checkers. Station 13 needs it because you have that long point to Three Rivers, not the high call volume, but you do have the freeway and the target hazard. So 28 Early Mart, and then 13 in Lemon Cove would be the next two after that.
And then can you just kind of, I know you've said this in the past, but could you just remind us as far as the significance of having 2O staffing and what happens right now if there's a a certain type of call, what, people have to wait for a second engine if you don't have 2O staffing?
No, thank you for that. When we respond to a structure fire, we have the closest 4 units for a single-family residential structure fire. So it's 3 engines and a water tender if it's non-hydrant area, or if it's 3 engines and a truck. The second alarm going beyond that goes to 3 more engines, an additional water tender, and a battalion chief goes. So you have 5 people, 5 pieces of equipment coming to that one scene. There are so many things that have to take place during the first minute and a half arrival on scene: size up, rescue, set up a RIC team. So for these rapid operations to happen, having the 2O staffing gives you the deployment model is less, the rapid interaction, trying to get a rapid intervention team. We had some things that passed in the late 90s where you have to have 2 people on the exterior of the fire when you have 2 people that go into the fire unless you have a confirmed rescue. And making confirmed rescue with 1 person, and our extra help that do show up do a great job. But the 2O staffing model, Madera County is the only county that has 1O staffing, and there's us. And believe me, I understand economic resources and finance, and people are very expensive. But having a 2O staffing model it's very healthy for firefighter safety. It's very healthy for civilian safety. But making sure that in the old model is when I started in Kings County, this was a long time ago, was, we'd send 4 pieces of equipment, so we knew we'd have 4 people show up because they were also a 1O staff model. So I can answer it.
Yeah, you did. I mean, it just basically so for any given incident, we're not only the most, whatever is closest in proximity, that station, but we're pulling resources from other stations. So theoretically, a quarter of the county or whatever could lose coverage because of one given incident, or maybe it's a fifth of the county or whatever it is. But, I think just given that perspective that not only, we're pulling resources from other stations as well, and that takes additional time to get to the location, and then those areas aren't covered for that period of time. So that is
Almost
helpful.
looks like, not to go into a sports analogy, I apologize for
No,
cutting
go
you,
ahead.
but it almost looks like a prevent defense or a zone defense. When we have 4 grass fires locally, and you're never going to control that unless it's December, but you're going to have some of these, and you've got to flex your resources. The other day, I was at an incident in Exeter, and I saw an engine from Early Mart there. And tis the season. This is just kind of our rapid time. So, go ahead.
I just know with Madera County, they still contract with CAL FIRE.
Yes, they do.
So their costs are going to be a lot more expensive as far as a per personnel cost. But they did try to get a special tax for fire, and that was defeated. That was not successful. What was that, 2 years ago? I think it was 2018 when they tried that, just as a side note. And then you also, as far as upcoming challenges, you talked about a little bit about aging equipment, and you mentioned some equipment from the 80s. What's the plan? I know we've talked about this every year, having a certain amount as far as the current plan is to change out so many per year. Can you elaborate on that?
You bet. And again, I live in realistic financial times, so I understand that. To replace everything we need to would be about $21 million. The latter.
1 million?
21 million. So, yeah, I need 21 million. Going to close out
That's
now?
all right. I just, you're just a little, it's a little,
It's great for comic relief.
it was just a little quiet, so.
Right. The lifespan of an engine, and not to drone on forever, but lifespan of an engine, ladders inside, hits about 12 years, and then they become cost prohibitive. It used to be 12 years front line, 3 years in reserve, and out of the fleet at 15. Ladder trucks are the same way, but they hit it at about 10 3/4, 10 years, 6 months. Then they start the torque boxes, the ladder cables, the testing on the hydrostatically tested. They go from, that 30,000 that the engines are doing, they're doing 50, 75, 80,000. They become cost prohibitive at about 12 years, is what I've seen in my career. The type 1 apparatus, we can do type 3s, and we've done that in some various stations when we have the urban interface, but the type 1, the big heavy apparatus, those have gone up with the steel tariffs. Those are about $600,000 apiece, 6 to 650. The patrols are the only thing that are relatively inexpensive, and they're still around $250,000. Visalia bought one of their ladders. I want to say that was 1.2, 1.3 million. So they've just grown exponentially with the steel tariffs. But we do have some replacement needs, and in conjunction with those, we're going to have to do some station modifications. And I know it can't all be done in one day, but we do have some significant needs.
And so and maybe this is more for, whether it's Chief or Jason, as far as annually, we're looking, what do we spend on, or what do we kind of budget as far as for engine replacements? Is it like $1 million, $1.5 million, 750,000? I don't know, what's the ballpark-ish?
We bought one last year.
About $1 million?
Yeah, we bought two last year.
Oh, about
so
$2 million. Okay.
So,
one.
So, and maintenance is,
Who's on
and
first?
maintenance is right around $900,000 to $1 million a year, so it's expensive, so.
So, looking at, depending on, if we're budgeting $1 million a year, that doesn't even buy a ladder truck at today's costs. Is there any way that we can expedite replacement? I know there's been things that have floated around in the past and side conversations. I know for other fleets, we utilize the treasury and have an internal fund to help, departments basically take auto loans against the treasury. So it's not an outside loan, but it's still a loan of sorts that gets paid off. Are there options like that we can look at, that we can save money as far as from a maintenance standpoint and make sure that we're getting the equipment that we need? I look to Chief or...
Would you like me to answer?
So, yeah, sure. So, thank you, Supervisor Crocker. So so to answer your first question about each year we sort of sit down with the fire department and figure out, I believe this last year that just concluded, we're waiting on 2 Type 3s.
Yes, we are.
About $1 million for those. We're looking at this year's budget to see if we could purchase some more. There is about a 420-day lag on them, so it takes about a year and a half to really get them. So even though we're committing each year to buying an apparatus, it's really not coming for another, year
400 days.
or 400 plus days. And then in terms of internal borrowing, those are all things we can look at. I know in talking with the auditor, there's been certain thought processes about internal borrowing, but Charlie and I continue to have conversations all the time about how we could accelerate apparatus replacement. There's a number of options we could do. One could be we could borrow, but that would be up to the board's decision to borrow money on that. We could use, we could redirect resources from other departments to purchase those assets. So there are some options, but I know before the COVID time hit, we were really looking a lot into sort of lease versus buy kind of program, and so I think we're probably going to kind of resume some of those conversations. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but that gives you some options.
I think I would just like to see if there's a way to expedite doing this. I see that there's a need, recognizing that there are other factors involved, such as, stations need to be remodeled to be able to accommodate that, and that, brings in a whole other question as far as where you get the funds to do that. But so there's multiple moving parts, but I think I would like to see options to how we can achieve that, and whether it is, internal borrowing, whether it's utilizing certificates of participation, different things that we can see. I would assume that newer engines are going to have less maintenance requirements. So, you know, and if we're already, whether or not we've formally created a policy that states that we're going to have so much money going towards engine replacements, you know, is it possible that because interest rates are so low that our payments might actually be less than what we're spending now? I mean, I think that's an absolute possibility. So, you know, fiscally, why wouldn't we take that step then and try and get all new equipment sooner, if we're just, you know, if we're reducing our overall costs and our burdens, and we can use those funds elsewhere. So you know, I don't have an exact answers for what does it look like, but I'd like to see some options at a future date so we can make an informed decision. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, Supervisor Struckling?
Hi, Charlie. So, thank you for the update. Big question. How do we eliminate illegal fireworks?
Hang on a second. I think they've got that on slide 7.
Yeah. You know, thankfully this year, I don't believe there were any deaths due to it, but obviously there were quite a few fires, and we're seeing it throughout California. I mean, some of those helicopter footage of 4th of July, pretty amazing. So is there anything that's, other than, I know you did quite a detail on trying to confiscate and whatnot, so up to you.
It's in a perfect storm. I mean, we had it on a Saturday, which was surrounded by Friday, Sunday. We had it post-COVID. We had it post some of the civil unrest issues. I think this was just a bad year. But with the shutdown, I mean, every fireworks vendor I talked to in the county sold out. All those things about letting them sell longer, it didn't matter. They were all done by July 3rd. So I think we need to get involved. I know I had some conversation with some Three Rivers residents and said, hey, you need some more signage out here. We have people there. I said, okay, that's a whole different issue. But I think doing some more PSAs may help. But the people that we did cite said, you know, hey, this is my right. I'll write you. No, other than citing, I'll be happy to look at maybe some more innovative things over the next, because we've got a couple of months to prepare for next spring. And but yeah, it was really bad out there this year. This is the worst I've seen it. I know. Thank you.
I'm glad I don't live in Visalia, Supervisor. Supervisor Valero.
Did you have?
You know what, I thought that was an accident. I'm sorry, Supervisor Townsend. You already had your chance, but I'll go back to you.
Hey, just a quick thing, Charlie, on talking about the extra help and just recruitment in general. Do you guys have a presence on any of the military academies in the county? Do you go out and you know, for they have special like career days and things like that? And I would think that some of these students that are taking that pathway, like there's a Portable Military Academy pathway, Portable Unified, and I would think that some of them would be perfect candidates to start getting in their ear and saying, hey, there's a whole career in firefighting out there. And so I just didn't know if you already had presence there.
We did have some with La Sierra Academy several years ago, but we haven't done a lot since March. But right. No, that is a very good, the vocational ed track is very good for us getting out into the schools. Once we start getting open again, I think it'd be very viable. So
okay. Might be able to find some good quality candidates out there for down the road. Yeah.
For the suggestion.
Supervisor Valero.
Although I think, just to add to that, I think that it might be a little bit more difficult now, given the fact of like the pandemic and being able to go into the schools to with the career pathways now and internships. I hope that's not going to be the case, but I know, like, for example, Orosi and Dinuba partner with Valley ROP for their rural urban firefighter program. And so I know that is another outlet. But nonetheless, yes, a great job in terms of your report and your update. One of the things that I didn't see here, and I know that it's been a discussion in the past with regards to the call center, and has there been any kind of challenges, or is there kind of everything okay in terms of the call center located at Mooney Grove Park? how is that running? Is that okay? Just didn't see that here.
It's, the employees we have that work at FireCom are great. Apples and oranges from Sheriff's Dispatch, because we have such a different mission with IROC and the Wildland Fire Dispatching. With us moving into the Cigna building and the Spielman Motorola upgrade, it's going to be outstanding.
Okay.
And I think getting everybody in the same rooftop, not necessarily in the same room, but for large-scale incidents, having a co-located, non-consolidated dispatch center, this is going to be right up there with the Station 1 advancement. This is going to be a great thing for us. You know, and I always tease people because we had the trailer out at Mooney's Grove. A terrorist act could be somebody pulling up an F-250 and taking off with our dispatch center. So, but that was a stopgap. That was, there were so many things going on when the fire department was first founded that they had a lot of things to do, and that was a great center for the time. But I think as we progress into this next center, we're going to that next direction.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, thank you for a great presentation. I think it's been great to see the department grow and advance technologically and in training. It benefits not only the department and the safety of your employees, but also the safety of the public. There are definitely no shortage of issues to be overcome as we continue to move forward. But I think your department is a prime example of this county's general approach in all of our departments and in all of our communities. And that is, as time goes on and as money is accumulated, as we advance our position and become aware of different opportunities, we take advantage of those and we invest in our communities, we invest in our departments, and we can see them grow and enhance and develop. And I think your department is a perfect example of that. To see the fire department where it is today versus where it was when I first got on this board, leaps and bounds. There's really no comparison whatsoever, and we've got a great chief leading the team, and you have a wonderful leadership team as well. If you were to prioritize issues and see where the county were going to expend money to further enhance your department, would you rather see that on the equipment side or on the staffing side in terms of 2.0 or new equipment?
Let me get my buddy Boudreau on the phone. Hey, Mike.
I mean, it's really a value judgment, but I mean, there's only so much money to go around. You know, even if you did borrow additional funds that can only be used for equipment purposes, my question is we can all sit up here and say whatever we want to say, but you're the chief. This is your department. We support your department, and we want to help you to achieve your goal and your vision. Of course, you'd probably like all of them, all of the above, but what would you prioritize?
Personnel. Personnel are the toughest to get. They're the most expensive. Apparatus, granted, they're at some point where they reach a state of obsolescence, but personnel are the hardest to get and keep. So personnel would be my number one priority.
Thank you. All right, Supervisor Crocker, you want to speak again?
Yeah, just a quick question. I know it was in the presentation, but when did we move out of Mooney Grove for dispatch? Is just to follow up, or is that, I assume that's complete, we're in Cigna and operational?
No. We are still at Mooney Grove.
We're still at Mooney Grove.
Yeah,
So when's the time frame? Right, I know it's temporary.
The timeline was August of 2021. Working with Spielman Motorola, we're probably looking at January 2022.
January 2022, okay. Very
But
good.
it is, we're having very productive meetings, it's moving forward.
Look forward to that next giant step for your department.
Thank you.
Chief. So thank you very much. Appreciate
I know every
your,
time you see
your
me,
comments.
it's always money, 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 but I truly appreciate Station 1. I appreciate your support of the fire department. It's very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
And I look forward to seeing Sheriff Boudreau wash your engine. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. We'll now move on and take up item 23, which is a request from the Health and Human Services Agency to approve the 10-year master lease agreement with Kawia Management Company in an amount not to exceed $4.345 million to provide 56 housing units at 26442 North Highway 99, Tulare, California, for individuals experiencing homelessness in Tulare County, effective July 21st, 2020 through June 30th, 2030. Chaz, how are you?
Very good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for having me. Good morning, actually, I guess it's good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, CAO, County Council, Chaz Felix, HHSA Homeless Initiatives Program Coordinator. So we're very excited to be here to discuss a new initiative that we and our partners have been busy working on behind the scenes over the last couple of months, which is, as you mentioned, to utilize the 99 Palms Hotel as permanent housing for the homeless through a 10-year master lease with Kuya Management Company, which is a nonprofit affiliated with the Housing Authority of Tulare County. So I guess before I jump into the presentation, first just want to acknowledge and thank the Housing Authority and its staff for their willingness to partner with us on this brand new venture that's really outside of both of our ordinary scopes of practice. The Housing Authority really has been doing some tremendous work for the homeless and low-income communities that operates quietly behind the scenes, and this project is just another example of that. So again, thanks to them for working with us on this new initiative. But just for today, I'll cover the background for this effort, an overview of the project, and some next steps, but please feel free to stop me at any time for questions. So to begin, just some background for you. It goes without saying that we're living in challenging times right now. COVID-19 impacts virtually all aspects of society, but it's especially challenging to vulnerable populations such as the homeless, who are often medically fragile and without a safe place to quarantine. So in an effort to meet some of these needs, HHA has administered Project Room Key since April, which provides space at 4 hotels in 3 cities throughout the county for the homeless impacted by COVID, as well as a wide range of wraparound services, including food, transportation, and intensive case management. So up to this point, we've been thrilled at the impact of Project Room Key. As Tim mentioned, we averaged about 100 stayers per night, essentially acting as the largest de facto homeless shelter in the county. We've connected folks with services who have been completely out of the system up to this point, and we've kept many without a place to stay outside of harm's way. But despite that impact, Project Room Key is inherently limited. It's an interim solution and not a permanent place for folks to live. So one of the most useful things I think we learned from our countywide homeless plan is that no one solution will solve homelessness, and at the end of the day, permanent housing is required to make sustainable progress towards that goal. But despite these challenging times, we had momentum from existing homeless efforts. In 2020, things were getting done, including implementation of our countywide strategic homeless plan. Just an example of that, we have the City of Tulare that formed a strategic action committee to plan and implement a homeless shelter in that city. Additionally, we had the development of permanent housing. In collaboration with self-help enterprises and upholdings, we were recently awarded over $10 million through the No Place Like Home program for integrated housing projects in Porterville and Dinuba. And also service delivery innovation, including partnerships with Kuya Delta Street Medicine to provide integrated services to homeless communities through outreach opportunities. So this, combined with existing relationships with hotels through Project Room Key, new funding opportunities that have been coming from the state and federal governments, and an ongoing commitment of the county to address homelessness, really put in motion the plan to come together to utilize the 99 Palms Hotel for permanent homeless housing. So just a little bit on that site specifically. Since April, we've successfully operated Project Room Key at the 99 Palms. This was our first Project Room Key site. So just want to acknowledge Vina, who's with us today, the hotel's owner, for taking a leap of faith with us and being just really great to work with on this project.
Chaz, how many units or homeless residents has the 99 Palms or provided shelter or roof over their head for during this pandemic, or since April, since we've been utilizing the Project Room Key?
Yeah, that's a great question. We average around 20 to 25 per night.
Per night.
But
and that's been happening since April.
Yeah. So that's a big impact for the city of Tulare. So the site itself, we've been averaging about 25 from our own program, but the site itself is 56 units, which alone would be one of the largest sites for permanent housing for the homeless in the county. And I know one thing this board has really supported has been a landlord mitigation fund to incentivize landlords to rent to homeless individuals, which is a keen need considering we have these vouchers that aren't being utilized because we can't find places for them to go. So I think this project and this site will have a tremendous impact in finally having a place where people can use those vouchers and they don't go unused, which would be fantastic for this community. So just in terms of some lease details, the lease itself will be a 10-year lease at $36,213 a month. All the capital is provided by Kauai Management, which potentially allows new state funding for hotel conversions to be used for other projects, which is huge for local plans. So just in terms of the project's format, the primary focus will be permanent housing, but we'll also be able to provide space for HHSA target populations and target programs, including mental health housing, CalWorks, and other agency programs specifically catered to the homeless. To start with, we're going to work with the Housing Authority and the Kings to Larry Homeless Alliance to assign vouchers to the site. We're looking at 30 permanent housing units to start, with the rest being a combination of those agency programs. We will continue to make available case management services to every client on this site, which we found to have a huge impact on clients staying there. In terms of financing, the lease itself is going to be paid from the rents collected from clients there, and no general fund is going to be used to pay that lease. And just as for some next steps, the due diligence period for this transaction ends on 7/24, which is just around the corner, and the sale itself will close on August 12th. At that point, the focus is going to be on turning over the building and preparing to take over the lease. So our current focus now in Project Roomkey is not just to have folks there, we're trying to get folks prepared to take the next step into permanent housing. So we're working on getting them all their documents to get qualified for either a Section 8 voucher, a Mainstream Voucher Program voucher through the Housing Authority, or one of the various permanent supportive housing vouchers through the Kings to Larry Homeless Alliance, which will transition them from temporary Project Roomkey assistance to a permanent place to live at that hotel. So with that, I have the request right here. As always, we absolutely thank the board and CEO for your ongoing support of homeless efforts. And again, we thank the Housing Authority, the Homeless Alliance, and everyone else who came together to make this project a reality. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Chaz, great presentation. Thank you for bringing this to us today. A couple questions that I have. I've received some calls from some constituents around this facility. One primary concern from those constituents is security. I know that the property owner is going to be the Housing Authority, but the lease is through the county. What is the plan for security at the site? Do we have any?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the things that has made Project Roomkey a success and something we feel good about at all of our sites is that we do have 24/7 security there. We're going to plan on continuing that same model moving forward at the 99 Palms. We've really found that to be definitely key to that success.
Okay, great. And then 24-hour staffing, is there, what type of facility on-site staffing is going to be proposed?
It's going to be a continuation of our model we're using now, where we kind of have a boots-on-the-ground person there during regular business hours, and our staff is on call in case anything goes wrong 24/7. That's another reason we have a good relationship with our security company to notify us if there are any problems. We're going to have office space there for our case managers and staff, whether that's going to be HHS staff or contracted out, to be there on site to make sure that we're connecting with people and connecting with their case management services.
Okay, great. All right, and then the target population, is this going to be specifically from Tulare, specifically from Visalia, Porterville? Is it going to be a limited base, or is it just whoever can submit the vouchers and meet the requirements, and they will be their requests will be met?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it will vary by program. We want to make sure that since it's in county property that we're serving all the county. One of the things that we look at for voucher opportunities is their acuity and where they are in terms of their needs. We want to make sure that we're sending people there who have a greater need than those who don't, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're sending people there who will be successful in the program, and there's not so high need that they need a higher intensity type of service, like a nursing facility or something like that. Okay. So it'll be a combination of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Supervisor Crocker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of questions on clarification on the process. Kauai Management has purchased the property currently, or they're in process?
Yeah, I believe their board approved last week to purchase the property contingent upon board approval.
And so Kuya Management Company is the housing authority or some part of the housing authority?
They're not a subsidiary, they're an affiliate nonprofit. I think it's standard business practice for local housing authorities to have a nonprofit that operates in some relationship to them. And I think it's just more technical reasons like ease of vouchers being utilized there that we found that would be the ideal partner to purchase this site.
Okay. And then, I guess just a comment or possibly a question. I know that 99, Highway 99 is going to be, hopefully start construction on an expansion to 6 lanes this fall, or, you know, as of the last, and I know with this board, we've been very supportive of Highway 99's need to expand for a trade corridor route. And it's been a multi-year effort. So is that going to impact anything? And are you guys going to be able to work around any of those type of, recognizing that that's a big priority for?
Yeah, that's definitely a great question. We actually made contact with Caltrans at the state to make sure that this project wouldn't be interfered with their expansion plans, and we feel confident that we can continue to move forward and that not being an issue.
Very good. I guess just the last point is I know that there's a lot of different moving parts on homeless projects, and this is one piece of it. We've heard from public comments by TC Hope, and we know of some other either nonprofits or other efforts by various cities as far as what they're doing. I think it'd be helpful for me, whether it's a formal board presentation or a memo or something along the lines, just getting an update as far as what some of the major milestones that not only we as a county are working towards, but what some of the other agencies within the county are working for, and nonprofits, just to see where we're at.
Absolutely, we'd be happy to prepare that for you guys.
Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Shuckling.
Turn it on, I turned it off. Hey, Chaz.
Hey, Amy.
First of all, I just want to say you have totally immersed yourself and have established some really key partnerships throughout your tenure as the program coordinator, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
There's a silver lining in a dark cloud here. You know, Project Room Key was established because of COVID, and now we're moving to actually, you know, working with other entities in purchasing or leasing, so I think it's a great thing. You know, I don't really have anything more to say than that. I'm fully supportive of this. I think this is going to be a way to go also in the future. So I support you 100% on this.
Thank you for your support, Supervisor.
Thank you. Oh, one other thing. Coming off of Crocker's request, I know recently you sent me a copy of the point in time, so maybe you can come back with kind of a letting us know, you know, where we're at in our point in time count with homelessness in Tulare County.
Sure, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, Supervisor Valero.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation, Mr. Felix. And I just, even though I haven't really shared this much, but I actually do have an uncle who does not have a roof over his head and usually is transient from Tulare County to Kern County and back and forth. And he actually used Room Key, and he said that it was just outstanding, amazing, the help, the support, the quarantine, the isolation, anything and everything that the county did to support him during his time when he was extremely sick, and family members thinking that he had COVID and didn't want him near our immediate family or extended family, my grandma, who's older, and so trying to find means and ways, and so I kept contact with him throughout his process, and he had nothing but great things to say about it. So I am in full support of this. I know that this is a much-needed investment in Tulare County, especially given the fact that we are one of the highest in terms of unsheltered for our homeless population here in Tulare County. So it works, and I've seen the results of it, and just continue to do that great work here in Tulare.
Thanks so much, Supervisor.
All right, are there any additional comments or questions from board members? Any public comment, Madam Clerk? All right, seeing none. We do. Okay, please come forward, ma'am. State your name and address for the record.
Hello, everybody. My name is Veena Doichure, and I'm the owner and operator of 99 Palms Inn. So I'm happy to be here today. And I have to say that Chaz has been extremely instrumental in this partnership. And going into this, I had a lot of hesitations. There were some drawbacks that I saw when I was approaching this particular partnership. But being in this particular state at this particular time, I can definitely say that 4 months, 3 months into it, it's been a successful partnership for both of us, and they're doing an excellent job. So it's all about helping the needy, I feel. So as long as that is addressed, and it's being addressed really well, it's great. It'll all work out.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Just a quick, I want to thank you also, first in your willingness to, partner in Project Room Key alone, but now in this endeavor, I want to thank you also for that. Are we going to change the name, or that's up to the, okay.
Shuckling Inn?
Shuckley Inn.
Shuckley Inn?
Yeah, Shuckley Inn.
Yeah, I used to volunteer with a lot of nonprofits, and I really believe in that cause. And so this is something I feel that will be useful all around. And I'm really hoping it's not going to be a for-profit venture, and it's something that's going to help the community. I mean, that was the intent when I embarked on this. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any additional public comments this morning? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to the board for discussion and action.
I would move approval of the item.
We have a motion by Supervisor Shuckley and a second by Supervisor Valero. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous.
Thanks, Chaz. Thanks for hanging in back there for 4 hours.
It was worth it, thank you.
We will now move on and take up item 24. At this point, board members may make a referral to staff to have a matter of business be considered for a future agenda. Are there such requests this morning? Afternoon. Seeing none, look over to council. Council, do we have need for closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have need for closed session. Items A through E and item G are off calendar, and the balance of the agenda will be heard in closed session. There will be no announcement out.
All right, no announcements. Thank you for attending today's meeting. I hope everyone stays healthy and safe. Meeting is adjourned to closed session.